Chapter 482. With a wave of her hand, all the insects on the half-coffin lid flew out, and the stone door at the bottom of the coffin opened automatically. It was a dark passage to the third floor of the Huai royal tomb. Wait a minute. Tang Xiaoxi suddenly pulled Lin Muyu, and then raised her palm. Her flame power swept through the moss and dust at the bottom of the coffin, and suddenly, an ancient book appeared there. Lin Muyu hurriedly picked it up, and used her pitiful knowledge of the broken cauldron realm to read it, and said, "Diamond protection body?" "Yes." Tang Xiaoxi said happily, "It's the ultimate skill passed down from the 9 great god emperors, Xuanji Buddha, diamond protection body." "Great, it looks like it's the complete version, really good." "Complete version, what do you mean?" Lin Muyu looked puzzled. Tang Xiaoxi said slowly, "Most of the diamond protection body books that have been passed down for tens of thousands of years are incomplete. The diamond protection body has a total of 9 heavens, and each layer of defense is stronger than the previous one. However, most of the books collected by the book collectors on the continent only have 1 to 3 heavens, and they are extremely expensive. Mu, quickly take a look at how many heavens are recorded in this diamond protection body book." "Yes." Lin Muyu opened the book, and found that this book's paper was actually not broken for thousands of years, and should be made of special materials. Moreover, the handwriting on the book was very clear, and when she flipped to the end, she could see the handwriting of the 9th heavens. She couldn't help but smile. Sure enough, there are a total of 9 heavens, and this is the complete version. Tang Xiaoxi was elated, and said with a smile, "Mu, just for this diamond protection body book, we didn't come in vain. But it's a pity that the training requirement for the diamond protection body is a male body, and a female body can't withstand such a vast amount of Xian energy. So, you should keep this diamond protection body book and don't underestimate it. For tens of thousands of years, the diamond protection body is one of the strongest defensive martial arts in the world, maybe, it's number 1. Lin Muyu nodded. Although she was known to have a strong defense, she still relied on her martial spirit and its ability to defend. The real defensive martial art was only third-rate, like the green rock armor. Cough cough, not to be disrespectful to Chu Chu, but the green rock armor's defense was indeed very limited. Now that she got this diamond protection body book, it was like coal in snow. At the side, Bai Yin had a resentful expression. When Lin Muyu saw this, she couldn't help but smile. "Bai Yin, don't be sad. After we return to the temple, I will get someone to make a copy of this diamond protection body book. Feng Jixing, Qin Yan, Wei Chou, and you will each have a copy. The few of us will first cultivate it, and then personally pass it down to someone we trust. I'm not the kind of person who treasures my own things, so don't worry." Bai Yin turned pale with fright. "Commander. You're really willing to share this diamond protection body book? Why not?" Lin Muyu smiled. "Only when all of you become stronger will the empire be considered to have become stronger." The respect on Bai Yin's face became even stronger, as he cupped his fists and said, "My lord, in the history of the continent, the more powerful cultivators do not pass down their martial arts to outsiders. There are also many requirements for disciples, and they will not pass down the complete martial arts book. But my lord has obtained such an unparalleled absolute art, and is actually willing to share it. Bai Yin admires you. Stop flattering me. Let's go to the 3rd floor." "Yes." After stepping into the 3rd floor, the passageway of the tomb chamber was still gloomy, and there were many soul flowers growing on the stone walls. As a medicine deity-level alchemist, Lin Muyu naturally would not let go of such a good opportunity to collect level 10 medicinal herbs. She did not let go of a single flower, and put them all into her cosmos bag. Tang Xiaoxi was a little surprised, and asked with a smile, "Although soul flowers are very precious, this place is gloomy and terrifying, and yet you did not let go of a single one. Speaking of which, why did you collect so many soul flowers?" "Shao Shi, do you still remember the stony scale patients in the periphery of the Huai royal tomb?" "I remember. From the day they fell ill, their bodies would constantly be replaced by stone scales, and their movements would also become slow. They could only survive like animals, until one day, their entire bodies turned into stone. That kind of life is worse than death. I think that the stony scale is a kind of illness, and also a kind of poison. If I can refine a level 10 detoxification divine water, should be able to help them return to human form. Really? It should be possible, I will try. Tang Xiaoxi was a kind girl, and immediately gave Lin Muyu a hug, and said with a smile, "My Mu is the best." Bai Yin touched his nose, feeling that the two in front of him were already showing off their love, and did not care about the feelings of a single dog like him at all. It was simply inhumane. Although the corridor on the third floor was gloomy and cold, Lin Muyu could still sense an extremely evil aura lingering around with her spirit pulse technique. The distance was too close, and the spirit pulse technique could not determine the specific location. Not long before, there was the sound of gurgling water. There is actually water deep underground. Bai Yin frowned. Lin Muyu looked up, and on the stone wall, there were stone statues of Tao Tai. These ancient beasts had ferocious expressions, and they looked in the direction of the tomb with hostility, as if they were guarding the stone tomb. However, they were only stone statues, and although they could be used to scare people, they did not have any real meaning. After turning around a stone wall, there was an underground lake in front of them, flowing unceasingly. There is no way forward. Lin Muyu said calmly. Bai Yin tightly gripped the steel sword, and said, "Maybe the tomb was destroyed, so the underground water flowed in, and in the end, the passage to the fourth floor was drowned. What do we do?" Tang Xiaoxi was at a loss. How would I know? Bai Yin said, "Then we can only swim to the fourth floor, if we are not willing to give up." "We cannot give up." Lin Muyu clenched her fists, and said, "I came here for the Divine Seal Master Qin Bing's Divine Seal book. How can I be satisfied with a diamond protection book?" Tang Xiaoxi laughed. "Then let's continue diving." "No." Lin Muyu waved her hand, and squinted at the bottom of the lake, and said, "The lake water here is different from the surface, and there is something waiting for us in the lake water." "What is it?" Bai Yin could not help but tremble. "I don't know, but the aura is not too weak, we can test it." "Okay." Tang Xiaoxi said worriedly, "Then Mu, you have to be careful." "Don't worry, I have the diamond protection body." "Tui, you haven't even cultivated the diamond protection body yet, and you are already bragging." Lin Muyu held onto the long sword, step by step, and when the lake water wet her pants, a powerful aura suddenly surged in from afar, and ripples appeared on the surface of the water. As expected, the things at the bottom of the lake were not good things. At the same time, she hurriedly turned around, and at the same time, activated her battle armor and dragon blood shield. Pfft! In the darkness, a ferocious black fish about 30 centimeters long rushed out of the water and opened its sharp teeth to bite Lin Muyu's index finger in the air. But with a bang, the fish's teeth were broken, but Lin Muyu actually felt a faint pain. This fish was so strong, and its teeth were so sharp. Kacha, the stellar sword flashed, and the fish was cut in half, but its body was still jumping around on the ground, and it seemed that it would not die for a while. Tang Xiaoxi was dumbfounded. "What a scary fish, ghost teeth fish," Bai Yin said with a fierce look in his eyes. "It is said that a group of ghost teeth fish can eat a black tortoise in an instant." A black tortoise. He looked at the ghost teeth fish on the ground that had been cut in half, and suddenly found 2 golden lines on the fish's head. He couldn't help but tremble. It is actually a 2,000-year-old spirit beast, scary. At this time, one ghost teeth fish after another jumped out of the water, went straight to Lin Muyu, and pretended to eat every inch of his flesh. A group of flying fish in the air. Lin Muyu suddenly became excited. What a great opportunity it was. He hurriedly said, "Shao Shi, Bai Yin, back off. Let me handle it. It's time to show real swordsmanship." The stellar sword was dazzling, and the next moment, Lin Muyu entered a crazy state of sword attack. He turned around and waved dozens of times, roaring and cursing, and the sword light slashed fiercely. Suddenly, there were only shadows and sword flowers in front of him, and at the same time, the bodies of the ghost teeth fish fell to the ground. It was like an enhanced version of Fruit Ninja. Tang Xiaoxi's view of the world had been turned upside down. She held her forehead and said, "Moo, this idiot." Bai Yin was shocked. It was the first time that he had seen Lin Muyu attack with such a fast sword. The lethality and magnificence of it were really not to be underestimated. It was simply the best in the world. Soon, there were no more ghost teeth fish coming to seek death. However, the lake was still rippling, and there were still many ghost teeth fish waiting to attack. Lin Muyu shook his arm, and the blade vibrated, scattering the blood of the ghost teeth fish. He raised his hand and sheathed the sword, looking very handsome. "Then, what do we do now?" "We still can't go," Tang Xiaoxi said. Bai Yin narrowed his eyes and said, "Why don't we use fire? With the king's combat flame, we can definitely evaporate the lake water. When that happens, the ghost teeth fish will be like ducks that can't swim, and naturally won't be a threat." "Can we?" Tang Xiaoxi didn't know if this idea was reliable. Lin Muyu shook her head. "No." "Why?" Bai Yin was a little confused. Lin Muyu explained, "The depths of the tomb are originally isolated from the outside world, and the ventilation effect is not good. The oxygen level is far lower than the level on the surface. If we burn the lake water dry, not to mention where the steam will go, just the carbon dioxide produced will be enough to poison us, so it's better not to try." "Carbon dioxide?" Bai Yin was stunned. Lin Muyu patted his shoulder and said, "Bai Yin, you haven't studied much, so you don't understand this principle. It's not your fault." Bai Yin readily accepted the advice and cupped his fists. "Thank you for your guidance, Commander. I will study hard." Lin Muyu almost wanted to wish him a smooth exam, but she held back and said, "Shao Shi, although the ghost teeth fish are powerful, they are not absolutely powerful. How about this, Bai Yin will stay outside, and the two of us will use our Saint Domain pressure to separate the lake water and enter the fourth layer." Tang Xiaoxi nodded. Chapter 483. Buzz Buzz, a visible domain aura condensed around her body, reaching a radius of about 1 meter. It was probably only enough to protect herself from the attacks of the ghost fang fish. Tang Xiaoxi, who was beside Lin Muyu, had also entered the nine-tailed transformation state. It seemed that when she transformed into a nine-tailed demon fox, her body would also undergo some slight changes. For example, her breasts were more prominent, and the slender and elegant girl had a bit more wild beauty, which made her even more charming. Lin Muyu glanced back at Bai Yin and said, "Wait for us here. Shao Shi and I will return after we find Qin Bing's body and treasures." "Understood?" "Yes, Commander." Bai Yin cupped his fists and said, "This subordinate will not leave until the commander returns." "All right." Lin Muyu turned around and stepped into the lake. The domain pressure completely crushed the surrounding water within a meter. Immediately, the ghost fang fish were unhappy and hit the outer layer of the domain pressure again and again, making peng 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 sounds as if they were hitting tempered glass. Lin Muyu's speed was very fast, and she quickly rushed to the depths of the lake with Tang Xiaoxi. The domain pressure to resist the attacks of the ghost fang fish consumed a lot of fighting qi. Neither of them dared to delay, and when they reached the depths of the lake, they broke a layer of stone and quickly walked up. They had already entered the fourth layer of the tomb, and were only one step away from Qin Bing's burial place. Whoosh! The moment the two of them walked out of the lake, countless ghost fang fish rushed out of the water behind them. For a moment, Lin Muyu's obsessive-compulsive disorder acted up again. She turned around with a face full of excitement and pulled out the star's sword. Countless sword lights burst out, and she slashed wildly. After dealing with the ghost teeth fish that had jumped onto the shore, he went straight to the passageway of the tomb without stopping. He could smell the fragrance from afar. There were still soul flowers here. He had collected all of them and piled them up in the different space of the cosmos sack. He didn't know where he could find such good stuff in the future. Moreover, soul flowers were very valuable in Lanyan City. If anyone could take out half a kilogram of soul flowers, the transaction price would be at least 10,000 Jianghu coins. If they were refined into potions, the price would be even higher. After all, the detoxifying divine water could not only detoxify but also cure some difficult and complicated diseases. Those rich people lived a luxurious life all day long and contracted all kinds of strange diseases. The detoxifying divine water was simply a life-saving medicine for them. While Lin Muyu was happily collecting the soul flowers, the spiritual pulse technique suddenly shook, and a very strong breath was rushing over. He hurriedly stopped, pulled out the star's sword, and instantly raised the king's fighting flame to the peak state. He said with a slightly pale face, "Xiao Shi, be careful, something is coming." Although Tang Xiaoxi didn't practice the spiritual pulse technique, she was very sensitive to the breath. She quickly entered the state of the nine-tailed demon fox, and the fire god seal appeared in her palm, ready to attack. Roar! The roar of a beast and a burning feeling came from the passage of the tomb. It was a spirit beast of the fire attribute. In the blink of an eye, a giant beast rushed over, its head almost touching the tomb. It was a strange beast covered in flames. Its head was like a camel's, and on its head was a pair of antlers that were surrounded by flames. Its body was bent over, and its body was covered in fire scales. Its limbs were like a tiger's, and it looked very majestic. It roared at Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi, the two seemingly tiny humans, showing off its majesty. "It's an imperial puppet," Tang Xiaoxi said hurriedly, "an imperial puppet from 15,500 years ago. Oh my god, why is there such an ancient strange beast in this tomb? It's just here to give us spirit stones." Lin Muyu smiled confidently. She activated the dragon blood battle shield and the wall of the gourd at the same time, and then the 7 luminaries fairy gourd quickly disintegrated and merged with the god-binding chains to form a big treasure sword around the star's sword. Lin Muyu raised the long sword and used the falling star step. Before the imperial puppet could attack, Lin Muyu began to attack. The big treasure sword carried the Xian energy of the star's sword and swept toward the imperial puppet's neck. Roar! The imperial puppet roared ferociously, but it didn't defend at all. It waved its sharp claws at the big treasure sword. Bang! Sparks and stardust flew everywhere. Lin Muyu was pushed back and hit the wall, but an obvious sword mark appeared on the imperial puppet's claws. Blood flowed out. In the first collision, Lin Muyu won. A 15,500 years old spirit beast was strong, but Lin Muyu's martial soul was a new martial soul created by the fusion of a super grade 1 martial soul and a first grade martial soul. Its strength was beyond common sense, so it was expected that Lin Muyu had the upper hand. At the back, Tang Xiaoxi took advantage of the moment when Lin Muyu was pushed back to raise her 2 small hands. In an instant, 4 seals landed on the Emperor's puppet's chest: Soul-Suppressing Seal, Samsara Seal, Cosmic Star Seal, and Divine Array Seal. The Emperor's puppet's protective upstanding chi shattered into pieces of energy fragments. As the spirit beast's outer layer of defense weakened, its fate of defeat was sealed. Roar! The Emperor puppet roared angrily, and the spiritual power in its body quickly leaked out. The flames suddenly surged, forming an indiscriminate fire attack in all directions. Lin Muyu hurriedly dashed in front of Tang Xiaoxi. She raised her left hand, and the dragon blood battle shield, the gourd wall, and the true dragon arm's 3 layers of defense, directly withstanding the monarch puppet's attack. This monarch puppet must have gone mad to unleash such a powerful attack, burning the surrounding stone walls red. Many of the stone walls were even torn apart, and the entire chamber was on the verge of collapse. Damn it, get rid of it as soon as possible. Lin Muyu jumped up and held the sword in her right hand. The big treasure sword was surrounded by the light of the 5 mountains descending from the heavens. It was an attack from the sky. The imperial puppet seemed to realize the power of this attack. It quickly raised its head, and flames gathered, forming a wall of fire defense similar to the wall of a gourd. Bang! The sword fell, and the flames burst out. However, the imperial puppet did not expect the mysteriousness of a human's cultivation method. A golden light directly separated from the big treasure sword and fell down. Poochie, blood splattered. On the surface, Lin Muyu's attack was the 5 mountains descending from the heavens, but there was a light splitting slash hidden in it. This sword was about to split open the imperial puppet's skull. Not only that, she raised her left hand, and 2 little magic sonar blades flew out. The invisible attack directly pierced into the imperial puppet's eyes, and directly blinded it. The imperial puppet did not stop using dirty tricks, and it took all of them. At this time, the imperial puppet's heart was filled with a million curses, but what could it do? With its strength, it was already a bit strained to fight 2 Holy King-level powerhouses. Moreover, these 2 people were anomalies. One was a monster with 2 martial souls, and the other was a beautiful girl who was a monster. She was the legendary 9-tailed demon fox, an existence that could kill people. In the end, a few rounds of fire god seal blasted out, and the imperial puppet was forced to retreat. Lin Muyu held her sword horizontally, and faced the imperial puppet's flame attack. With a "kacha" sound, the scales were broken, and the imperial puppet's throat was directly cut. Blood splattered out, and the imperial puppet retreated a few steps, and with a cry, it fell to the ground. It produced a beast spirit, and its cry was a little resentful, as if it was saying that dying in the hands of this abnormal powerhouse was worth it. Done. What a piece of trash. Lin Muyu's face was full of calmness. This calmness came from strong confidence, and at this time, in the eyes of Tang Xiaoxi, it was as if the whole world was here. Tang Xiaoxi stood there quietly. She simply loved this shameless and incomparably powerful guy in front of her. She leaped onto the imperial puppet's body, cut open its head, and took out the spirit stone and put it in her Qianquan bag. It was another big harvest. A 15,500-year-old fire attribute spirit stone was still quite valuable. After all, there were many people who practiced the law of fire, and such a spirit stone was enough for Tang Xiaoxi to break through to the Holy Realm. As for the beast spirit, it was still a pity. Neither Lin Muyu nor Tang Xiaoxi needed it. They would only refine the beast spirit when they were about to break through. Otherwise, there would be no chance for their martial soul to absorb new abilities. That was simply a cruel treatment for cultivators. The 5th floor, the real burial place of Huai King Qin Bing, was right in front of them. As long as they pushed open the stone door, they could go to the 5th floor. However, Lin Muyu was a little nervous. After all, this trip was equivalent to digging up the Qin family's ancestral grave. It was fine if Qin Yin didn't blame her, but if Qin Bing really turned into a corpse, should she kill him or not? Somehow, she felt that Qin Jin was watching from above, and this didn't seem too good. However, for the sake of the high-grade engraved ancient books, she could only thicken her skin and go. Rustle, rustle, she slowly pushed the stone door. The moment it opened, an extremely stinky wind blew over. It had been 4,000 years, and it was still so smelly. Could it be that it hadn't completely rotted away? Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel nervous. She had a feeling that it was definitely not good. Tang Xiaoxi was so scared that her little face turned pale. She followed closely behind Lin Muyu, constantly muttering in her heart, "Prince Huai, she didn't mean to offend you. Actually, when Mu invited me to rob the grave, I rejected it. If you're unhappy, don't look for Xiao Shi and Mu. Go look for Baiyin who's staying on the 3rd floor. That guy looks shifty-eyed and doesn't look like a good person. At this moment, if Lin Muyu knew that Tang Xiaoxi was thinking this way, she would definitely laugh herself to death. On the 3rd floor, a chilly breeze slowly blew past, sending chills down one's spine. Baiyin hugged his legs and sat in a corner of the stone wall, watching the ghost toothfish jumping happily in the distance. His face was ashen. This place was eerie. Although they had already killed the ghost bees, who knew if there would be more? Also, would the mummy on the 2nd floor come back to life? At the thought of this, Baiyin was so scared that tears almost fell from his eyes. The commander and Princess Shi were too heartless, leaving him in such a terrifying and lonely place. He hugged his knees and trembled as he sat there alone, like an aggrieved and afraid Scottish fold cat. Chapter 484. The eerie, chilly wind made one's skin ache. When Lin Muyu slowly walked into the deepest part of the royal tomb with the star's sword in hand, she had already condensed her battle chi into her armor. Stars illuminated the path on both sides. Just like the upper levels, the walls were already covered with ancient carvings, and there were also stalks of soul flowers growing here. However, this time, Lin Muyu didn't go to pick the soul flowers. Instead, she looked at a row of coffins not far away. That's right, there was a row of coffins placed at the corner of the path. Behind each coffin was a bronze guard, and the weapons in their hands were actually still intact after thousands of years. Could they all be zombies? Tang Xiaoxi narrowed her beautiful eyes and asked worriedly. No. Lin Muyu shook her head. They're not zombies. He couldn't sense any auras, but he still had to confirm who these coffins belonged to. Otherwise, if they really were zombies and attacked from behind, it would be very difficult to deal with them. Rustle, when Lin Muyu opened the lid of a coffin, Tang Xiaoxi didn't dare to look inside at all. Lin Muyu used the light from the star's sword to look inside. The corpse inside had completely decomposed, and only a skeleton was left. However, from the clothes it was wearing, it seemed to be a woman, and a woman of very high status. Apart from clothes and the corpse, there were also jade stones and jewelry in the coffin. After opening another coffin, it was still a woman. There were 12 coffins filled with women in a row. Could they all be Prince Huai's concubines? Tang Xiaoxi asked. They should be. Lin Muyu nodded and said righteously, Prince Huai really knows how to enjoy life. He has 12 wives, and I'm surprised he can bear it. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh. She teased, you make it sound like it's real. If you were also conferred the title of Prince Huai in the future, I don't believe that you would only stay with one person and not take concubines. Humph, all men are different. Really? Lin Muyu looked straight at Tang Xiaoxi and said, if a woman can make a man love her deeply, love her with all his heart, then this man's world will not be able to enter other women. You can't look at things too one-sidedly. Alright, you're too good at talking. I can't win against you, but isn't it a bit inappropriate to discuss this issue in a place like this? Yes. Lin Muyu raised her stellar sword and lit up the distance. At the same time, an extremely strong fluctuation came from the spirit meridian technique. That direction was the main hall of the tomb owner. As expected, this trip was definitely not that simple. Her boots stepped on the cold stone floor as Lin Muyu walked in front. The aura of the spirit meridian technique became stronger and stronger, even stronger than the 15,500-year-old imperial puppet. This was enough to prove that the opponents here were stronger than the imperial puppet. Thus, Lin Muyu raised her king's fighting flame to its peak state without hesitation. Under the illumination of the stellar sword, the pillars on both sides of the walkway suddenly flickered with light with a schwa. It seemed that a luminous gem embedded in the stone pillar had been activated. Immediately after, the gems on the two closest pillars also began to flicker and spread out like ripples. In the blink of an eye, all of the pillars in the main hall of the tomb blossomed with light, brightly illuminating the entire underground world. "Look, over there." Tang Xiaoxi reached out and pointed. In the distance, in the center of the main hall, there was a very exquisite and dignified coffin. It was probably made of pure gold, and the sides of the coffin were full of cryptic and abstruse characters that she could not understand at all. Moreover, there were 2 huge golden copper rings, one at the front and one at the back of the coffin. They looked like pull rings, but she did not know what they were. However, what shocked Lin Muyu the most was that there was a person sitting on top of the coffin. It was a white-haired old man, sitting cross-legged with his head lowered. He did not say anything, and on his lap was a jade flute. Buzz buzz buzz, Tang Xiaoxi was very nervous. The 9-section whip in her hand also began to emit a fiery red fighting aura. It looked like it was going to attack at any time. Lin Muyu also felt that there was a life aura and energy fluctuation in this old man's body. Although this life aura was very weak, it was still there. Is he alive or dead? Tang Xiaoxi's voice was a little shaky. Lin Muyu pointed the tip of her sword at the old man. Her 2 martial souls surged together, and they quickly disintegrated into a big treasure sword. She shouted in a low voice, "Who are you? Why are you entrenched in the Huaiwang tomb?" The old man slowly raised his head, but it was a hideous and terrifying face, like a corpse that had been dead for countless years. He laughed cruelly. "You came to King Huai's tomb without the permission of the tomb owner, and you dare to question me like this? You are Huaiwang Qin Bing?" Lin Muyu was shocked. The old man laughed. "Huaiwang? This name. Does he deserve it? Ha ha ha, Qin Bing is just a corpse, he is no longer the Huaiwang tomb. But you," the old man said cautiously, "you have the God-binding lock martial soul, and you even refined and fused with the God-binding lock martial soul. Who are you? Are you from the Qin clan?" Lin Muyu was Qin Jin's godson, so she was naturally from the Qin clan. She smiled. "Yes, is there a problem? Since you are from the Qin clan, then stay here and sleep with Qin Bing in this place." "Who are you?" Lin Muyu asked. The old man's eyes were filled with arrogant murderous intent, and he laughed. "I am someone who controls life and death, someone who can make you wish you were dead. Ha ha ha, kid, and that pretty little girl, you can die with Qin Bing." As he spoke, the old man leaped backward, and he stepped on the power of the sanctuary. He actually stopped in the air for a short while. Holy heaven realm! Not only that, but he also played the jade flute. The sound of the flute was harsh, and there was no beauty to it. Moreover, the sound of the flute was filled with hostility, and the sound waves swept out in all directions, making Lin Muyu feel irritated for no reason. No, the sound of the flute could confuse one's mind. This old man is not simple. Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice, and she silently chanted the clear heart mantra to maintain the clarity of the spiritual meridian technique. In the blink of an eye, her EC became calm, and Tang Xiaoxi was an expert in using the clear heart mantra. This level of confusion could not do anything to her. However, at this moment, a rustling sound came from the coffin. What's wrong? Lin Muyu's eyes turned cold. Is he going to turn into a zombie? Tang Xiaoxi waved the nation-suppressing whip in her hand, and she quietly entered the 9-tailed demon fox state. She knew that the battle was imminent, and the old man in front of her was definitely not a good person. How could someone who swore to kill the Qin clan be a good person? Bang! The lid of the coffin suddenly flew up, and the gold that weighed hundreds of kilograms flew into the air and fell heavily on the ground. Some of the patterns on it were ruined, and it was really distressing. Inside the coffin, the person wearing the monarch's armor and cloak slowly stood up. His face was half rotten, and his eyes turned to look at Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi, making them shudder. Prince Hui, Qin Bing, had indeed turned into a zombie. This old man was a corpse controller, and it was because of his existence that this tomb was filled with strangeness and death. The old man blew the jade flute and laughed. "Qin Bing, do you see that? That brat is a descendant of your Qin clan, and he might even be your direct descendant. Kill to your heart's content, and use the blood of these two people to satisfy the loneliness that you have been sleeping for 4,000 years. Prince Hui slowly raised the sword on his waist. This sword had been buried with him for thousands of years, and when it was unsheathed, it actually shone brightly. Spiritual qi enshrouded the exquisite blade, and it was definitely a good sword. Roar! Qin Bing roared angrily, and his whole body was covered with fighting light. What a guy! This guy was actually a divine heaven realm warrior before he died. Lin Muyu's heart turned cold. This was not going to be easy. Could she and Tang Xiaoxi handle two divine heaven realm warriors? Could it be that they were going to die in this place? Countless thoughts flashed through her mind, but none of them seemed very practical. The poison in the Qianquan bag had been used up, and the clear breeze drunk was gone. Even if there was, it probably wouldn't have any effect on these things that were neither human nor ghost. They might not even be able to breathe, so how could they be poisoned? Ancestor, I'm sorry. The star's sword was filled with the 7 planets' mysterious energy, and Lin Muyu faced it head-on. She used the pressure of the divine realm to break through Qin Bing's domain, and the long sword, with the energy of the 2 planets' demonic dance, shook Qin Bing's blade. Clang! With just one strike, it was obvious who had the upper hand. Even though he had a superb martial soul like the 7 luminary celestial sword, he was still slightly weaker than a holy heaven stage cultivator in terms of power. Moreover, Qin Bing was surrounded by 11 pure God-binding chains martial souls. Even after his corpse transformation, he still retained his martial soul and power from when he was alive. Piss off! Qin Bing roared, and his ankle was filled with the power of the divine heaven realm as he kicked heavily into Lin Muyu's abdomen. At the same time, Lin Muyu's 3 planets calamity also struck Qin Bing's shoulder. Bam! Lin Muyu's abdomen was struck, and her dragon blood battle shield shattered into pieces. She stumbled back several steps and threw up a mouthful of blood in a disheveled manner. She raised her head, only to discover that the power of Qin Bing's divine heaven realm battle armor had completely repelled the 3rd planet calamity's profound energy, and almost didn't inflict any damage. His protective aura was simply too powerful. Tang Xiaoxi, who had transformed into her 9-tailed demon fox form, couldn't bear to watch this any longer. She bit her lip, and said, "Mu, Qin Bing's corpse is being controlled by that corpse controller. I'll go and kill him. Be careful, he's at the divine heaven realm." Alright. The 9-section whip issued a sharp, "pa" sound in the air, and Tang Xiaoxi dashed forward, her flaming tail leaving a blazing light in the air. It was very beautiful, and in the blink of an eye, she was fighting with the corpse driver. Lin Muyu took a deep breath. Qin Bing's protective aura was simply too powerful. If she were to unleash her 6 planets tribulation or even her 7-planet star transformation, then it would be fine if she could break through his protective aura, but if she couldn't, then she would most likely suffer a crushing defeat. After all, the 6th and 7th planets were both extremely taxing on one's battle chi and stamina, and if she were to expend too much battle chi without being able to defeat her opponent, then she could very easily fall under his control. At this point, the best course of action was to exhaust Qin Bing's battle chi as quickly as possible. After all, manifesting his suit of battle armor also required energy to do so. She raised her heavenly star sword and unleashed a fierce slash. Sword chi flew forth along with the light from her massive sword before crashing violently into Qin Bing's divine heaven realm calamity chi. She then unleashed a second strike, and each and every one of those strikes was simple, yet extremely fast, and didn't contain any special techniques. Meanwhile, Qin Bing let loose an enraged roar as he circulated all of his battle chi, gathering the spirit power of his battle armor wherever Lin Muyu struck. Bang bang bang, a series of explosions rang out within the tomb chamber, and the battle between the two of them was extremely thrilling. Chapter 485. In the short span of 5 minutes, Lin Muyu had unleashed countless strikes, but she had only expended less than 10% of her power. However, Qin Bing was different. Every time he defended, he would summon his suit of battle armor with all his might to prevent Lin Muyu from breaking through his defensive barrier. Just like that, after summoning his suit of battle armor so many times, the intensity of his battle chi had clearly decreased, and even the toughness of his suit of battle armor had decreased significantly. Qin Bing had lost at least 50% of his strength. It was time. Lin Muyu was secretly happy. Tang Xiaoxi, who was on the side, continued to fight with the corpse driver with the fire god seal. The nation-suppressing whip continued to explode in the air, but the corpse driver's strength was not weaker than Tang Xiaoxi's. He was not at a disadvantage. They had to get rid of Qin Bing as soon as possible. Otherwise, Tang Xiaoxi would be in danger if she could not defeat him. Buzz! Starlight surrounded her left arm, and Lin Muyu shouted. Her fist was surrounded by the power of the 5 mountains descending from the heavens. At the same time, she raised her right hand, and the long sword and her palm were hidden behind the wide white imperial forest cloak. Flames surged, and the longsword was surrounded by flames. The dragon flame spiral break was already accumulating power. However, Qin Bing was only focused on dealing with the 5 mountains descending from the heavens, and did not notice that the spiral break was about to be completed. Come on, you bastard! Qin Bing pushed out both palms, and it was actually a counterattack. His palms were filled with the divine power of the god-binding chains and the holy heaven realm Xian Qi, and there was a faint sound of Sanskrit. It seemed to be an unknown move. Screw it, I'll fight. Lin Muyu's killing intent was already determined. She suddenly opened her palms, and the 5 mountains descending from the heavens blasted toward Qin Bing's palms. Bang! The explosion was earth-shattering. Qin Bing was indeed not a simple divine sealing master. Not only was his engraving technique outstanding, but his cultivation was also not to be underestimated. Even after using 50% of his strength, his counterattack was still so powerful. The blood in Lin Muyu's body surged. This Qin Bing was really too powerful. He actually pushed her back, but at the same time, she suddenly swung her right hand and sent out the dragon flame spiral break. Die! With a loud shout, Lin Muyu's palms were filled with raging flames. She controlled the stellar sword from a distance and launched a fierce attack. Qin Bing was also stunned. He hurriedly retreated a few steps, grabbed the long sword beside him, and thrust it out. With a flick of his wrist, the blade of the sword started to sway faster and faster, forming a whirlpool of god-binding shackles power. Huai Wang was so smart. He actually wanted to use god-binding shackles to neutralize the powerful whirlpool of spiral break. Lin Muyu naturally wouldn't let him succeed. Her left hand grabbed backwards and directly through the demonic noise saber. Xiao! A sharp light flashed in the air and the demonic noise blade disappeared. However, a cold air attacked Qin Bing from behind. Even though he was in a half-human, half-zombie state, Qin Bing still retained a powerful sense of vigilance. He could sense that the saber was imbued with spiritual power and energy, and it was something that his suit of battle armor wouldn't be able to withstand. Qin Bing's expression instantly changed drastically, and he hurriedly slashed his sword toward the demonic noise saber. Clang! The demonic noise saber was sent flying, but the spiral break unleashed by the stellar sword was already unstoppable. Boom! 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 It consecutively broke through 3 layers of Qin Bing's defensive aura, and the sharp edge of the sword directly pierced into Qin Bing's chest. Puff! 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 His heart and lungs were completely shredded into pieces. However, his heart was like dried grass. It had long since withered and didn't provide any life energy at all. So what if it was shredded? Even so, Qin Bing still retreated several steps. His face was pale as he looked at Lin Muyu. You, corpse controller, who was watching from afar, became anxious. He shouted, Qin Bing, if you lose, your heavenly book will no longer be yours. It will become someone else's. What? Qin Bing's expression suddenly became crazed and violent. He roared at Lin Muyu, and shouted, you stinking brat, you actually want to steal this king's heavenly book? Die! Qin Bing didn't know where the power came from, but the 11 god-binding chains around him surged crazily. A blood-colored storm was gathered in his palm, and it surged endlessly. The stone slabs on the ground around him were all shredded into pieces by the storm. If this attack were to be unleashed, it would probably be a little unimaginable. So annoying, Lin Muyu couldn't stand it anymore. He didn't want to hold back anymore. He raised his long sword, and star power flowed. Countless rays of starlight converged on his handsome body. 7 glorious stars transformation. The 7 luminaries' immortal sword seemed to be jumping with joy. Because a large part of its power originated from the 7 luminaries, it could be said that they were from the same source. Therefore, the 7 glorious stars transformation activated by the 7 luminaries' immortal sword was naturally even more powerful. Qin Bing also felt the power of the 7 glorious stars transformation. He couldn't help but laugh loudly. I didn't think that after so many years of death, I would still die here after being reborn. Good boy, you are a descendant of my Qin family. Kill me, destroy my body and soul, and no longer be controlled by that despicable person. As you wish. Lin Muyu suddenly stabbed out with his sword, and the power of the 7 glorious stars transformation blasted out like a surging river. When it swept through, it directly tore Qin Bing's body into pieces. Even the remaining wisp of his soul was destroyed. He had indeed fallen into the fate of being destroyed in body and soul. After using the 7 glorious stars transformation, Lin Muyu clearly felt that the power in her body was about to be sucked dry. However, with the strengthening of her cultivation realm and soul, the power of the 7 luminaries transformation was not as frightening. At least 10 to 20% of her fighting spirit was left in her body. She raised her hand to grab the demonic noise saber that flew back, and looked in the direction where Tang Xiaoxi and the corpse driver were fighting. When he looked over, he discovered that Tang Xiaoxi had thrown the 9-section whip to the side. She was purely fighting the corpse driver with her flesh and blood. A bitingly cold fire fox martial soul appeared behind her, and the fire fox martial soul became increasingly fierce in the battle. It transformed into sharp claws that appeared around Tang Xiaoxi's palms. Whoosh! When Tang Xiaoxi's palms swept past, the power of her martial soul appeared, and the fire fox's sharp claws immediately left a bloody wound on the corpse driver's chest. It seemed that there was no need for Lin Muyu to help at all. Tang Xiaoxi could already deal with the corpse driver. Bastard! The corpse driver's face was full of anger, and from time to time, he looked back at the stone tablet behind him. Lin Muyu immediately walked over with her sword in hand. Her body was covered in dense king's fighting flame, and she quietly stood there to watch the battle. At the same time, she also cut off the corpse driver's escape route. It seemed that he did not come in through the entrance of the tomb, but secretly dug in. However, such a half-human, half-corpse corpse driver really did not know what he was after. Was it revenge on Qin Bing's corpse? Thinking of this, Lin Muyu could not help but think of Qin Bing's concubine. He married a young and beautiful concubine, and this concubine had a cousin who loved her deeply, which was the corpse driver in front of her. Then, after Qin Bing and the concubine died, this corpse driver came to torture Qin Bing's corpse to vent the pain in his heart. Well, it was 2F** king melodramatic, but at this time, the corpse driver was in the most pain. It was already very painful for him to deal with Tang Xiaoxi, who had transformed into a 9-tailed beast. Now, there was also Lin Muyu, who killed Qin Bing, behind him. It was like a toad standing at his feet, not scary but disgusting. For a moment, the corpse driver's moves began to be messed up. Let's end it. Tang Xiaoxi suddenly pushed out with her palm, and the powerful dark force directly blasted through the corpse driver's chest. He took a few steps back, looked at the bloody hole in his chest, and his face was full of disbelief. He took a few steps back, gently held a stone tablet behind him, and said with a pale face, You can take all the treasures here, but don't touch the heavenly book, or you will bear the consequences. Heavenly book? Lin Muyu frowned and said, What exactly is the heavenly book? The corpse driver sneered, How can you mortals know the mystery of the heavenly book? Instead of letting the broken cauldron world, which can shake the world, reappear, it is better to make this land more peaceful. Moreover, I believe that reopening the heavenly imperial gate is also something that God Emperor Fuxi does not want to see. Humans are so greedy, wanting to get two after getting one. You are not worthy of the heavenly book. Where is the heavenly book? Lin Muyu asked indifferently. I won't say. The corpse driver smiled. Lin Muyu opened one hand, and the king's battle flame gushed out, directly igniting the corpse driver's body that had already begun to wither. She said indifferently, Anyway, you are not a good thing, and I don't want you to say anything else. Go to hell in peace, we will find the heavenly book ourselves. You little bastard. The corpse driver wailed in pain. He originally thought that Lin Muyu would continue to ask him for a few more lines, but he did not expect that this kid would not play by the rules. He was simply hateful. It didn't take long for the corpse driver to turn into a pile of ashes in the tomb chamber. Mu, you just used the 7 glorious stars transformation, are you okay? Tang Xiaoxi asked. I'm fine, I still have some physical strength. Lin Muyu was a little weak, and said, Xiaoxi, let's quickly look for it and see where the heavenly book they were talking about is. Qin Bing and the corpse driver cherished this heavenly book so much, I have a feeling that this heavenly book is what I am looking for. The two of them searched around and searched everything, but still could not find any heavenly book. However, the sword that Qin Bing left behind was very good. It was a second-rank saint-grade treasure sword, very exquisite. They kept it and could give it to Chuyao later to help her cultivate. Where is it? Lin Muyu was in pain. At this time, Tang Xiaoxi gently knocked on the bottom of the coffin with the back of her hand, and suddenly her eyes lit up. She smiled and said, This is hollow, there is a layer at the bottom of the coffin, Mu, you check it. The coffin was full of pieces of Qin Bing's corpse, and some fallen skin, hair, and so on. It looked very disgusting, but for the sake of the legendary heavenly book, Lin Muyu still reluctantly looked for it. After all, the corpse driver mentioned Fuxi and the heavenly imperial gate, which made Lin Muyu very surprised. Did the people of this world also know about Fuxi? Fuxi was a saint of China more than 10,000 years ago, an existence respected as the ancestor of the East. If Fuxi also existed in the shattered cauldron world, it could only mean that he had traveled through time, and even used the power of reincarnation to reverse time. Perhaps, after Fuxi sprinkled the fire seed on Earth, he traveled forward 10,000 years and came to the shattered cauldron world to sprinkle the fire seed. Rustle, rustle, after lifting the wooden plank at the bottom of the coffin, they found a huge treasure box under Qin Bing's corpse. Lin Muyu's heart was filled with joy. She hurriedly took out the treasure box and said with a face full of joy, It should be this. Then quickly take a look. Opening the treasure box, there was a thick golden grimoire inside. It was a book made of pure gold, very heroic. And the cover of the book was engraved with ancient Eastern characters, Fuxi's heavenly book. God Emperor Fuxi, does Xiaoxi know this person? Lin Muyu asked. I don't know, he should be a legendary figure from 10,000 years ago. Many of them have been forgotten by the world, and we can only know about him by flipping through the ancient books. Mu, is this Fushi's heavenly book the book you are looking for? I don't know, we'll know once we open it. There was an ancient seal on the heavenly book. Lin Muyu directly tore it and casually flipped to the first page. As expected, there were lines of formations engraved on it. It was the detailed explanation of the Imperial Fire Seal and the Imperial Thunder Seal, as well as the profound formation engraving method. At the same time, with a swoosh sound, a ray of golden light suddenly shot out from the heavenly book into the sky. It directly shot through the tomb chamber and out of the 9 heavens. Heavens! Tang Xiaoxi raised her head and looked up, saying, I feel like we've made a mistake. Chapter 486. This beam of golden light grew larger and larger, directly illuminating the sky. It actually slowly circulated and transformed into ancient seals. It was like a divine oracle had opened a mysterious gate. Immediately, a huge array of golden light was activated in the sky. In the blink of an eye, it spread out. The huge array occupied the sky above the shattered cauldron realm and continued to spread out, extending into many smaller arrays. It was as if some kind of drastic change was happening between heaven and earth. A mysterious power flowed between heaven and earth. The earth trembled and the rivers stopped flowing. In the early winter, the withered grass and leaves showed signs of recovery. The snow melted and a mysterious life force moved on the earth, turning the mountains and rivers of the Qin Empire green. In the heart-nurturing pavilion, a golden light shone down from the sky. Qin Han sat cross-legged in the pavilion, not opening his eyes. He only smiled faintly. Those 2 little fellows really opened the heavenly book of Fushi. Forget it, this is fate. The power of heaven and earth has been sealed for thousands of years. It's time for it to be opened again. The 7 world palaces. Luolan and a group of people stood outside the palace and looked up at the ever-changing giant formation in the sky. They couldn't help but frown. The heavenly imperial gate has finally been opened. Could it be that the shattered cauldron realm is going to re-enter the era of the heavenly tomes? On the side, Lu Zhan said respectfully, Immortal Sovereign, since the heavenly imperial gate has been opened, then we must gather the earthly tome, heavenly tome, and divine tome inscriptions before all the sects on the continent. Otherwise, if those dogs of the empire get to us first, I'm afraid it will be very disadvantageous to us. Luolan said indifferently, Lu Zhan, do you really think the 7 world palaces have to work for the Iha nation? Disciple doesn't dare to think so. Lu Zhan said, Celestial Sovereign is a god. You don't have to mess up your cultivation because of the troubles in the mortal world. But the people of the 7 world palaces are far from Celestial Sovereign's cultivation. So, Disciple feels that we still need to collect more heavenly tomes. Otherwise, the influence of the 7 world palaces in the mortal world will be greatly reduced. Luolan couldn't help but smile and wave her hand. Alright, I'll leave the matter of the heavenly tomes to you. Yes. In the depths of the mountains, the old man who lived and slept in the open slowly lifted his white robe. Looking at the golden light formation in the sky, he couldn't help but frown, and said, This is the profound strength of the heavenly imperial gate? Celestial monarch Fushi's seal has been broken? Chu Chu frowned and said, I'm afraid those declining heavenly book clans are going to rise again. The empire is getting more and more chaotic, but it's good that the heavenly book has regained its strength and nourishment. This is at least a good thing for the empire. I wonder how you, Xiao Yin, and Xiao Shi's cultivation is going recently. With immortal Qin Han around, there shouldn't be too much of a problem, right? As he spoke, he continued to look at the herbs boiling in the pot. He couldn't help but have a face full of joy. These herbs are really magical. If I don't boil them, I won't be able to refine them. Naughty. Above the firmament, in the myriad world divine realm. Outside the layers of immortal clouds, palaces stood majestically in the air. The palaces on a huge mountain range stretched for thousands of miles, which could be called a spectacle. Immortals could often be seen riding the clouds and roaming among them. In the midst of the continuous palaces, there was an extremely magnificent hall that emitted streams of holy power. It was extremely majestic. Guards in golden armor stood outside the hall. These guards all had solemn expressions, and they held divine weapons in their palms. Their bodies were enshrouded with streams of divine power. Every one of them had the power of a god. In the hall, a group of strangely dressed god powerhouses stood respectfully under the steps. And on the steps sat a dignified god. Who else could it be but the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor? The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor crossed his palms and held his chin. He looked at the gods silently and said, "Have you found out who opened the heavenly imperial gate?" "Humph, the Xian strength of our heavenly realm isn't enough for the gods to absorb and refine. This person from the human realm actually opened the heavenly imperial gate to draw the power of heaven and earth without saying a word. This is too much. Don't they know how to inform us first?" Below, a god with the cultivation of a god king said respectfully, reporting to Demon Emperor, "We have found out that there is only one key that can open the heavenly imperial gate. It is a heavenly book left behind by God Emperor Fuxi before he ascended to the heavens beyond heaven. It is called Fuxi's Heavenly Book. Not long ago, this heavenly book was opened by someone from a plane under the myriad world stars." "Which plane?" "Shattered Cauldron Realm. Fuxi's heavenly book has been buried for thousands of years, but now it has been opened. We have already found out through divine power that the kid who opened Fuxi's heavenly book is called Lin Muyu. He has the Demon Emperor's 7 luminaries' secret art. I don't know who he is." "Oh. Interesting." The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor couldn't help but laugh. "So he is a weakling. Ahahaha, I knew it. How many mortals would jump around and ask for a beating? It's understandable that he is a weakling." The God King was stunned and said, "Demon Emperor, this person opened the heavenly imperial gate and let at least 30% of the heaven realm's power leak out. Should we send dozens of ultimate gods to the human realm to teach him a lesson?" "No need." The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor waved his hand and said, "Let the people of the Shattered Cauldron realm settle the matter. We don't need to interfere. Don't forget that we are gods. We have to act cool, okay?" The God King was completely stunned. "Demon Emperor, act cool is it something similar to godhood?" The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor smiled faintly. "You can think of it that way." "Oh right, what did the gods of the polar starry realm say? Are they willing to join the myriad realms' divine realm and rule this divine realm with us? They said that the law they follow is the polar law. They only want to coexist peacefully with us. Demon Emperor, what should we do? What should we do?" The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor raised his eyebrows and slapped the table. "Beat them up. Beat them up until they are willing. Do you still need to ask me such a simple question? Send down the order immediately. Send 50 god kings and 1,000 ultimate gods. If they can't beat them up, then tell me. I will do it myself. I haven't fought in a long time. My hands are itching." The God King, in the tomb, a certain someone who had caused a huge disaster was still feeling smug. In a short 5 minutes, he had read through the first 4 volumes of the Fuxi Heavenly Book. It had a very detailed record of all kinds of engraving techniques and seal formation diagrams from level 1 to level 7. This book was simply the most precious treasure in the world of engraving. However, there were still 3 volumes left, but they were all wordless heavenly books. Not a single word could be seen, which was depressing. Meanwhile, Tang Xiaoxi noticed that other than the Fuxi Heavenly Book, there were a few other treasures in the box. There were 3 crystals that glowed with the luster of divine power. Holding them in her hands, she could feel the vast power contained in them. They were divine crystals, level 7 gems. They were also one of the most precious gems in the world. There were also 2 fiery red crystals. They did not look like stones, but more like a pure energy body. Furthermore, they were incomplete fragments. Mu, what is this? Tang Xiaoxi held the energy block in her hands and smiled. It feels so warm. Lin Muyu closed the Fuxi heavenly book and forcefully stuffed it into her heaven-earth bag. Only then did she look at the thing in Tang Xiaoxi's hands. She could not help but tremble. This thing seemed to have caught a glimpse of it in the brain of the 7 luminaries demon emperor. She reached out to touch it. These 2 energy fragments actually resonated with a wisp of divine power in her hands. This wisp of divine power was left to her by the 7 luminaries demon emperor. It was real divine power, and it actually resonated with these 2 energy fragments. In an instant, Lin Muyu seemed to understand something. Her voice trembled as she said, "Shao Shi, this fragment is probably the legendary Godhead fragment." Godhead fragment. Tang Xiaoxi was also surprised. She immediately felt how heavy these 2 fragments were. They were the essence of a god's body, the Godhead fragment. Lin Muyu said, "There should have been a war in the divine territory more than 4,000 years ago. It's normal for the Godhead fragments of fallen gods to be collected by humans." Qin Bing was an honorable martial artist other than the emperor at that time, so it's normal for him to have 2 Godhead fragments. However, his power wasn't enough to refine the Godhead fragments, so it'd be a waste to take them. Then can you refine them? Tang Xiaoxi naturally knew that Lin Muyu was unique in the art of refining. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to refine all kinds of god-level medicines, weapons, and so on. However, she did not ask for details since Lin Muyu was unwilling to elaborate. "I can give it a try. Then I'll give it to you." Tang Xiaoxi very generously handed the 2 Godhead fragments to him and said with a smile, "I have no use for these things anyway. We found these treasures together, so whoever needs them can have them." Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a bit awkward. "That's so embarrassing. I found so many things, but I didn't give anything to you." "I gave them all to me." Tang Xiaoxi grabbed the fiery nation-suppressing whip and said, "You forged such a precious holy weapon for me, but you didn't ask for anything from me, did you? If it were someone else, who knows what kind of unreasonable request they'd make." "What kind of unreasonable request?" Lin Muyu teased. You really are a bad guy. You only know how to tease me." Tang Xiaoxi's pretty face turned red. However, at this moment, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the tomb. Layers of dust and gravel fell continuously. Immediately, Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi looked at each other, their faces pale. Usually, what happens after a tomb raid? The tomb collapses. Run. Amen. Lin Muyu picked up Qin Bing's spirit-gathering sword and threw it into her universe pouch. She put away the shard of divinity and ran with Tang Xiaoxi toward the entrance. They didn't even have time to take the treasures buried with them and the golden coffin. What a pity, they were all shiny silver. Tang Xiaoxi knew that Lin Muyu was still in the weakened state of the 7 glorious stars transformation, so she put his arm on her shoulder and ran with him. With a sudden shout, she transformed into the 9-tailed demon fox. Her breasts instantly increased by a cup, and Lin Muyu's eyes almost fell out of their sockets. They flew past and rushed out of the lake. Lin Muyu shouted, "The tomb is about to collapse, Bai Yin, run." Bai Yin looked up and was overjoyed. He immediately ran with all his might, running even faster than Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi. "Damn Bai Yin, how can you be a personal bodyguard?" A certain imperial commander was furious, but Bai Yin's figure was already nowhere to be seen. There was no doubt about the world's #1 godly thief's Qinggong. Chapter 487. Boom boom boom. When Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi, and Bai Yin rushed out of the tomb, a series of explosions came from below. The purple snow flower totem outside the tomb was already trembling, and it was only a matter of time before the inside of the mountain collapsed. The three of them quickly rushed into the lake and swam away from this realm that was about to say goodbye to the world. Lin Muyu's clothes were soaked by the cold lake water, and she couldn't summon too many monarch battle flames for her battle armor. Fortunately, Tang Xiaoxi was there to take care of her, so she was fine. When the three of them emerged from the pool in the canyon, it was already dawn of the next day. Time seemed to pass much faster in King Huai's tomb compared to the outside world. It was very mysterious. Not far from the shore, the patients with stenocrosis who were in a petrified state let out low wails. They stared at Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi, and Bai Yin with eyes full of hatred. Go in the opposite direction and avoid them. Lin Muyu said. Okay. Tang Xiaoxi grabbed his arm and swam with him, and Bai Yin swam clumsily with them. It seemed that after this time, Bai Yin would be able to grasp the basic skills of swimming. After reaching the shore, Bai Yin immediately cupped his fists and said, "Commander, we can't stay here for long. Since we found what we want, let's hurry back to Lanyan City." No hurry. Lin Muyu waved her hand. Let's look around and see if there are any 7-star flowers. 7-star flowers? Bai Yin was stunned. Yes. Lin Muyu said, soul flowers and 7-star flowers can be mixed together and boiled to form a medicine that will disperse with the wind. Hopefully, it will be able to cure these stenocrosis patients. Bai Yin narrowed his eyes and said, Commander, please don't blame Bai Yin for speaking out of turn. These stoneflukers even tried to harm us before, so why should we waste such a good herb like the soul flower to save them? Lin Muyu smiled. That's just their subconscious behavior. Furthermore, they didn't really hurt us. Bai Yin, don't blame me for talking too much. There are thousands of cultivators in the Shattered Cauldron realm, but why are there so few who can step into the sanctuary or even the godly state? To put it bluntly, it's because everyone only cultivates martial arts and not martial ethics. One's state of mind determines one's cultivation. If everyone could think of the common people, I'm afraid there would be more than 100 sanctuary experts in the Shattered Cauldron realm. Bai Yin was startled, but he respectfully said, this subordinate admires you. Not long after, Tang Xiaoxi found a patch of 7-star flowers in a valley, which made Lin Muyu extremely happy. She offered up her cooking pot, scooped up a pot of water, and started a fire to boil it. Those stenocrosis patients could only whimper on the other side of the lake. Their eyesight seemed to be very poor, and they couldn't see the specific location of Lin Muyu and the others at all. Taking out stalks of soul flowers from her cosmos sack and arranging them together, Lin Muyu took a deep breath and lightly opened her palm, activating the king's battle flame to activate the condensing hand. Immediately, the soul flowers trembled, and not long after, milky white medicinal essence left the petals and lingered in Lin Muyu's palm. At the same time, Lin Muyu was multitasking, and her other hand was refining the 7-star flower's medicinal essence. The two kinds of medicinal essence were mixed together, and when the water in the pot boiled, they were thrown in together. Immediately, a faint fragrance wafted in the wind. This place was upwind, and the medicinal essence floated past, quickly sweeping through the entire valley. More than 2 hours later, Bai Yin squinted his eyes at the stenocrosis patients in the distance, and said, it seems like, there's no effect, Commander, why don't we give up? No. Lin Muyu's clear eyes were filled with determination, and said, Bai Yin, look at the young stenocrosis patient closest to us, the stone skin on her arm is slowly falling off, and she's bleeding. It's true. Bai Yin was dumbfounded. That's right, the divine detoxification water was known as the world's #1 antidote, and its effects were extraordinary fast. The stone scales of the stenocrosis patients in the distance had already begun to fall off, and after fresh blood flowed out, the skin would begin to regenerate, and at the same time, their lives would be reborn. Just like that, Bai Yin went to gather firewood, and Tang Xiaoxi brewed the medicine. The three of them stayed here, and for 3 consecutive days, they helped treat the people in the valley. Although it seemed like a waste of 3 days, Lin Muyu firmly believed that these 3 days were not wasted. First, they could save at least 1,000 stone-necrosis patients in the valley, and second, they could cultivate their mental states, and cultivate their hearts. But for those who had truly achieved outstanding achievements in cultivation, which one of them wasn't a compassionate person? God Emperor Fuxi, God Emperor Nuwa, these ancient gods were all compassionate existences. Take the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor, for example. Although he was a demon, he wasn't completely evil. In front of Lin Muyu, he acted like a big brother. As for Qin Yi, the only person in the Qin clan who had cultivated to become a god emperor, his ultimate goal in hunting down the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor was probably to bring peace to the 3 realms. As for Luo Lan, this first-stage god realm expert had not made any breakthroughs after so many years. It must have something to do with her mental state. If Luo Lan had really cultivated her mental state, she would have long cultivated to become a god king and roamed the heaven realm. Another 2 days passed, and after a total of 5 days, the stone-necrosis patients who had been wandering aimlessly in the valley had all gathered together. Many of them let out cries of pain. Just before the sun set, a group of mostly recovered stone-necrosis patients supported each other as they walked around the lake. What are they trying to do? Bai Yin's palm pressed on the hilt of his sword. Don't be nervous. Lin Muyu reached out and pressed on the sheath of his sword. The stone-necrosis in these people has been cured. They are no longer a threat to us. Don't hurt them. Yes, Commander. At this moment, a group of patients who had just recovered from stonefall disease were less than 10 meters away from each other. An old man who looked to be in his 60s walked over shakily with the help of a young girl in plain clothes. His murky eyes were filled with gratitude as he said, "Everyone. Young swordsman, may I ask if it was you who cured us with the smell of the medicinal soup?" Lin Muyu walked forward and cupped her fists respectfully. "Yes, old man. How long has the stone-necrosis been going on here?" About 300 years. The old man instantly burst into tears. "Our fathers and grandfathers all died in the hands of the stone-necrosis. There are few people in the village who can live past 50 years old. Young hero, it was you who changed the fate of our village. Please accept this old man's salute." "Old man, you're welcome." Lin Muyu directly supported him with her hand. "We're just helping out when we see injustice, he. The old man was stunned. There was no such thing as helping out when we see injustice in the Shattered Cauldron realm. This was also one of the reasons why the people of the Shattered Cauldron realm did not practice martial arts. There was no one who would do justice and help the masses. Even the House of Chivalry was just a name. Real rangers were no different from mercenaries. They were all people who chased after fame and fortune. Young hero, we don't have anything good to give you, but we must repay you for saving our lives. So, we can only give you some treasures that our ancestors have kept for many years." "Oh. Little Yen, little Qin, bring it over," the old man ordered. Immediately, 2 young girls walked forward. They had just recovered, but each held a golden stone in their hands. Lin Muyu couldn't help but be stunned. "Old man, is this a gold mine?" "Aha, I think you've misunderstood. We didn't boil the medicine to cure your poison for you to repay us. There's no need for a gold mine." The old man shook his head and said with a smile, "Young hero, you've misunderstood. This is not a gold mine. This is a mysterious gold stone. After grinding it into powder, it can be used as a consumable material for writing heavenly books. These 2 mysterious gold stones contain a very rich spiritual power and can be called mysterious gold stones of the highest grade." This is a treasure that has been passed down by our ancestors for hundreds of generations. Although I don't know what it's used for, but it must be very valuable." Lin Muyu was speechless. Tang Xiaoxi gently touched his arm and said with a smile, "Since old man is so sincere, then accept it. Otherwise, I'll feel guilty." "All right then," Lin Muyu nodded and put the 2 mysterious gold stones into her qianquan bag. She cupped her fists and said, "Thank you, old man." The old man smiled slightly. "I should be the one thanking you, young hero. You've saved our entire village. From now on, we can finally live like normal people. I wonder if, young hero, can you leave some antidotes for us? We still have some people scattered in the jungle at the south of the mountain." "Sure." Lin Muyu nodded and said, "We'll camp here tonight and set off for the capital tomorrow. I'll take advantage of tonight to refine some antidotes for you." "Thank you, young hero." The old man cupped his hands in a trembling manner. His face was full of gratitude. In fact, at his age, he knew that those antidotes were very precious. Most people wouldn't be willing to take them out. However, the young man in front of him was willing to contribute them without hesitation. What a great kindness! At night, piles of bonfires rose by the lake. This village finally lived a real life for the first time. It was probably the first time many villagers had seen fire. They excitedly danced around the bonfire. Although it was hard to tell what kind of dance they were dancing, it was clear that they were very happy. Lin Muyu didn't stay idle. She refined the antidote by the lake. The antidote was very simple. The ratio of soul flower and 7-star flower was 5:5. Adding some water, it was ready. The only difficulty was extracting the essence of the soul flower. This kind of flower was very tender, and if one wasn't careful, the fibers would be damaged. Moreover, the essence was very fine. Without a certain level of ability, an alchemist would not be able to refine the essence. Of course, there was no need to mention Lin Muyu, a freak in the alchemy world. With the king's battle flame, even a tuft of Taishang Laojuan's hair could refine his DNA. A total of over 100 bottles of antidote were refined. 50 of them were given to the old village chief. As a token of gratitude, the old village chief gave a whole roasted lamb to Lin Muyu and the others. This was probably the most profitable business in history. 50 bottles of antidote were worth at least 500,000 gold coins, but a whole roasted lamb wasn't even worth 50 silver coins. Of course, Lin Muyu did not know that the 2 pieces of mystical gold rock that the old man gave him were top-grade inscription materials. If he knew, he would definitely feel that the 50 bottles of detoxification divine water were truly worth it. After a night of rest, the next day, they found a warhorse and set off back to Lanyan City. They had been away for too long. Chapter 488. At the same time, Qihai Province, Luoyang City, Ji Residence. Whoosh! An earthy yellow ray of light soared into the sky, causing the sky to rumble with thunder. At this moment, the power of heaven and earth was actually activated. Countless rays of light slowly descended into the garden in the backyard of the Ji residence. All of the light gathered at a place where a light blue shield was. On the shield, there were a few lines of obscure characters that were suffused with a faint light. Success, it's a high-grade earth tome. A middle-aged man cheered excitedly, "Father, after the heavenly imperial gate opened, you should be the first person to write a high-grade earth tome, the first person in the empire." The old man holding the shield was about 70 years old, with a face full of white beard. He smiled with satisfaction and said, "With the reopening of the heavenly imperial gate, the spiritual power between heaven and earth has also gathered again. Our Ji residence has waited for thousands of years and finally obtained this opportunity. Today is the day to rebuild our family business. Immediately write a letter and send it to Lanyan City." Report to Her Highness the Empress that I have written a high-grade earth tome. Yes. The next day, Lanyan City, Zetian Palace Hall. Qin Yin was dressed in a dark blue dress decorated with fish scale-shaped gems. The stars were very gorgeous, causing this heavenly beauty to shine even more brilliantly. Even though she was not wearing the Empress's robes, she was still extremely dignified, making the ministers wholeheartedly submit to her. But today, the mood of the ministers seemed to be very agitated. Feng Jixing held a scroll in his hand and said, Your Highness, in less than 7 days since the reopening of the Heavenly Imperial Gate, reports of success have been coming in one after another. Prince Qin Yong of Prince Zhong's residence in Yunzhong Province has written a low-grade earth tome. Someone from the Lu residence in Cangnan Province has written a high-grade earth tome. A few days ago, we received the latest report from Shaoxi. Ji Lin of Ji residence in Qihai Province has written a high-grade earth tome. Qin Yin nodded with a smile. The Marquis of the Tranquil Sea, Yao Yuan, dressed in a white robe, cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, the reopening of the Heavenly Imperial Gate and the regathering of the power of heaven and earth will inevitably cause great changes. This old official believes that whether it is the human book, the spiritual book, the earth book, or the heavenly book, or the divine book, they are all powerful enough to change the pattern of the future war. Your Highness should strike first, recruit talents, reopen the Heavenly Book Pavilion, and gather talents who can write spiritual books and above in Lanyan City to serve the Empire. Very well, Marquis's words make sense. Qin Yin still had a refreshing and charming smile. Su Muyun cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, I feel that, if the Heavenly Book Pavilion is to be reopened, we must find a capable and virtuous person to be its manager. Tang Lan nodded as well. This old official thinks so too. Let's appoint the person in charge first before rebuilding the Heavenly Book Pavilion. Once the Heavenly Tome Pavilion is reconstructed, its status will be above that of the Spiritual Medicine Department and be on equal footing with the Divine Temple. Suddenly, Chu Yao, who was dressed in a female official's robe, was a little displeased. She frowned slightly and did not speak. In fact, the Empire was in a period of war, and the need for force was far greater than the need for medicine. Moreover, the Heavenly Tome could attract the power of heaven and earth. Its power was extraordinary, so it was understandable that the Heavenly Tome Pavilion's status was above that of the Spiritual Medicine Department. Qin Yin's pair of intelligent eyes swept over the officials and said, Minister of Revenue, rebuild Prince Yuning's mansion and turn it into a mansion for the Heavenly Tome Pavilion. All needs will be provided by the Ministry of Revenue. In addition, send letters to Prince Zhong's mansion, Lu's mansion, Ouyang's mansion, and Ji's mansion, inviting their patriarchs and their children to settle down in Lanyan City. The imperial capital will treat them well. As for the position of the Heavenly Tome Pavilion's manager, wait for the people from the 4 families to come. Yes. Everyone saluted in unison. Su Muyun said again, Your Highness, since we have decided to rebuild the Heavenly Tome Pavilion, I think we should strike while the iron is hot. After the Heavenly Tome Pavilion is rebuilt, we should immediately start to select talents and hold the Heavenly Tome selection examination to recruit talents for the Empire. Yes. Qin Yin nodded lightly. Then, the preparation for the Heavenly Tome selection examination will be fully handled by Grandfather. Su Muyun cupped his hands. Thank you, Your Highness. Tang Lan was a little displeased, but she did not say much. 3 days later, the imperial capital, Lanyan City, seemed to have become more lively. Countless families and aristocratic families gathered from all over the mainland. All the major inns were full. Even many declining families who planned to rely on the Heavenly Tome Pavilion to revive their family's prestige from thousands of years ago had already settled in Lanyan City. They bought cars, houses, and horses. The population, business, and economy of Lanyan City had rapidly recovered. On the main road about 100 miles away from Lanyan City, 3 people and 3 horses were traveling slowly. The return journey was not too urgent because Lin Muyu had already received Xiao Bai's letter. Chu Yao told him everything about Lanyan City. Phew, Lin Muyu rode on the back of the treading snow warhorse and slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid breath. The dou qi in his body was running more forcefully and steadily. This was the credit of practicing the Vajra protection body. For 3 days, the Vajra protection body had 9 heavens, but Lin Muyu still practiced to the 3rd heavens. The first realm, withered tree roots, was the foundation of the Vajra protection body. With Lin Muyu's martial arts comprehension and current martial arts cultivation, he had already mastered it in just a few hours. The second realm, connecting the Sea of Qi, was not difficult for him at all. The Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll had already connected the Dou Qi to the Sea of Qi, so Lin Muyu only had to silently recite the mantra of the Vajra protection body a few times to complete it. It was the third realm, embracing the moon, that stumped Lin Muyu. It required the Dou Qi to connect all the tendons and veins in the body, like washing the marrow and tendons. After 2 days of practice, there were still no results. But at this time, Lin Muyu's arms were slightly folded in front of his chest. His whole body was enshrouded in the king's Dou Qi. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in his arms, like a bright moon. Tang Xiaoxi could not help but be happy. Mu, you have successfully practiced the embracing the moon? Lin Muyu felt the thick airflow on the surface of his body and the steady feeling coming from all over his body. He could not help but be happy. It seems that I have indeed practiced the 3rd heaven of the Vajra protection body. Bai Yin frowned, I have not even broken through to the 2nd heaven. Commander, did you teach me the wrong mantra? Pei, it is you who is a waste. How can you blame me? Tang Xiaoxi asked with a smile. How do you feel and change after practicing the 3rd heaven of the Vajra protection body? Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, my breath is longer, and I feel that my body's strength has increased by a lot. The Vajra protection body is indeed the ultimate divine art of defense. It is good that it is effective. Oh right, Xiaoxi. Lin Muyu said, Sister Chu Yao said that Zetian Palace is already planning to rebuild the Heavenly Book Pavilion. Is the legendary Heavenly Book really that powerful? It is like this. Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said, 4,000 years ago, the status of the Heavenly Book on the continent was no different from martial arts. The Heavenly Book is divided into 5 levels, which are the Human Book, Spirit Book, Earth Book, Heaven Book, and God Book. The power of the Heavenly Book is also increased. In addition, the Heavenly Book is actually a type of inscription carved on the embryo of a weapon. Once written, there is a certain chance of activating the power of heaven and earth. Only a Heavenly Book that activates the power of heaven and earth can be called a Heavenly Book. Otherwise, it is just a useless book. Once it activates the power of heaven and earth, it can bring about a very strong power. As she said this, Tang Xiaoxi was a little excited and continued with a smile. Legend has it that in a war 6,000 years ago, the empire's ancestor, Qin Zhang, activated the inscription of 3 god books and activated the power of heaven and earth, instantly annihilating more than 50,000 enemies. The power of the Heavenly Book is evident. More than 50,000? Lin Muyu was dumbfounded, then. I am afraid that the future war will not be the same as before. Yes, Tang Xiaoxi said faintly, the future war will be a battle between power and the Heavenly Book. Whoever has more Heavenly Books in their hands will be able to dominate the war. As she said this, Tang Xiaoxi suddenly smiled again, but there is no need to think so much. After all, there is no peerless genius who can write a god book. It is rare to see one in 10,000 years, not to mention this is an era where talents are dying. Lin Muyu still felt a lingering fear when she heard the story just now, but she did not say much. Instead, she took out the treasure book of Fuxi's Heavenly Book and studied it repeatedly. Fuxi's Heavenly Book was also a Heavenly Book, but it seemed to be different from the Heavenly Book that Tang Xiaoxi mentioned. Fuxi's Heavenly Book recorded the engraving of armors and shields, and they were all passive abilities. It was completely different from the heavenly book that Tang Xiaoxi described that could activate the power of heaven and earth. Forget it, I'll first learn the Fuxi heavenly book's engravings. I'll do what I do and love what I do. I can't just learn whatever is stronger. The most important thing is to do one thing well. Moreover, if I can really learn the engraving to the extreme, I should not be inferior to the person who inscribed the heavenly book, right? In the evening, they arrived at Lanyan City. There was an endless stream of merchants on the road. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were shocked. Although Lanyan City was the trade center of the continent, it was still a little unbearable to be so prosperous. When they entered the city, there was even a long queue outside the city. Merchants from all over the empire were queuing to enter the city. Once the sky turned dark, the city gates would be closed, and they could only spend the night outside the imperial city. Lin Muyu had no intention of queuing. She led Tang Xiaoxi and Bai Yin to the city gates and said loudly, "Zhang Wei, open the side gate and let us in." Zhang Wei was holding a roasted chicken and eating it fiercely. When he heard Lin Muyu's voice, he laughed. "Commander Yu is back? Someone, open the side gate and let Commander Yu and Princess Shi enter the city." Yes. When Lin Muyu entered the city, she saw that the streets were bustling with people from other places. She couldn't help but laugh. What's going on in Lanyan City? Why are there so many people? Zhang Wei rubbed his nose and laughed. That's natural. Duke Yun is about to hold the Heavenly Book selection examination, and the Empress has already issued an imperial edict. The person who writes the human book will be rewarded with 100 Jianyin coins, the person who writes the spiritual book will be rewarded with 1,000 Jianyin coins, the person who writes the earthly book will be rewarded with 10,000 Jianyin coins, the person who writes the heavenly book will be rewarded with 100,000 Jianyin coins, and the person who writes the heavenly book will be immediately conferred the title of nobility. Lin Muyu said resentfully, "When I first entered the Saint region, I didn't even get conferred the title of nobility. It seems that writing books these days is much more promising than practicing martial arts." Zhang Wei laughed. "Commander, don't be sad. Most of these people who inscribe the heavenly books are weak scholars. Even if they inscribe things like human book, spiritual book, and earthly book on their weapons, shields, and armors, won't we, the soldiers, have to wear the equipment that has become the heavenly book and fight with our lives against the demon race and the Iha nation?" "That's true, haha." Chapter 489. After returning to the Zetian Palace and meeting with Qin Yin, Chu Yao, Feng Jixing and the others, Lin Muyu immediately returned to the temple. His entire mind was focused on the engraving technique of the Fuxi heavenly book. He could not wait any longer. According to his orders, the temple had already prepared a large number of shields and placed them in the head deacon's office. Lin Muyu did not feel tired. After sitting down, he took out a carving knife and opened the Fuxi heavenly book. Immediately, the golden book shone with a dazzling light, even brighter than the candlelight at the side. He gently circulated his strength in his palm, and immediately, a thin king's battle flame circled around the exquisite carving knife. This was an engraving technique recorded in the Fuxi heavenly book. It used one's own qi and battle qi to concentrate on the carving knife. In reality, it was not the carving knife that cut the object, but the engraver's own strength. This way, the engraving and the user's compatibility would increase. However, it was easier said than done. Lin Muyu's king's battle flame was too overbearing and forceful. In just an hour, he had continuously carved 3 shields. Fortunately, the temple and the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce had money, so they could still afford it. "Take it slow, don't rush," he silently said to himself, his forehead full of sweat. In his heart, he silently recited the mental cultivation method recorded in the Fuxi heavenly book. Immediately, the speed of the fiery red dou qi revolving on the carving knife's edge also gradually slowed down along with his state of mind. Sha, unceasingly carved on the shield, piles of iron shavings one after another fell to the ground. But this time, he still failed. The lines of the solid rock seal were too complicated. One mistake would lead to failure. Looking at the dim solid rock seal, Lin Muyu could not help but feel lonely. However, he was not discouraged and continued to work hard. It wasn't until the rooster crowed in the morning that a ray of light finally appeared on one of the shields. This time, the engraving was successful. After an entire night of engraving, there was only one shield that was successful. However, just as Lin Muyu was about to use the testing crystal to test the perfection level, she was shocked. The number on the testing crystal kept jumping, and finally stopped at 94. Heavens, the first successful rank 2 monolith seal was 94% perfection level. Wasn't this a little too shocking? In an instant, the blood in his heart started to boil. He couldn't care about anything else and continued to carve. As if stepping into a new realm, the carving knife in Lin Muyu's hand became smooth. Lin Muyu had already mastered the engraving method recorded in Fuxi's heavenly book. Let's call it the Fuxi technique for now. The carving knife in his hands had gradually become an art. With the rustling of iron shavings, the second solid rock seal was successfully engraved. As expected, with the first time, the second time would be easy. After testing, it was 95% perfection level. Lin Muyu's blood was completely boiling. How could he still be sleepy at this time? He immediately took a new shield and started carving the soaring seal according to the rank 3 engraving manual recorded in Fuxi's heavenly book. As expected, he broke more than 10 shields in a row. All the way until noon, when Lin Muyu was getting more and more familiar with the soaring seal, she finally managed to inscribe the first soaring seal. It was a perfect 92%, another stunning masterpiece. Looking at the number on the testing crystal, he was in disbelief. Could it be that Fuxi's engraving method was really that amazing? It was over 90% perfection level. Thus, after carving 3 more soaring seals with 90% perfection level, he finally believed that this Fuxi's heavenly book was indeed a heavenly book. It was simply incomparable. Don't eat or sleep, strike while the iron is hot. He continued to study the rank 4 engraving seal, Absolute Devil Seal. The Absolute Devil Seal was a type of high-level defense system engraving. When engraved on a shield, it could defend against normal attacks from swords and bows. However, it required a mysterious crystal to be embedded in it. Fortunately, there were mysterious crystals in the Holy Hall. There were more than 10 mysterious crystals for him to use. Moreover, the Absolute Devil Seal's engraving was more complicated than the soaring seal. It could even be said to be ever-changing. Even the engraving manual in Fuxi's heavenly book was very blurry. High-level engraving was ever-changing. Each stroke was not fixed. Only when the engraver's state of mind was in harmony with the engraving and the spiritual sense of heaven and earth could the engraving be successful. In the end, when it was late at night, not a single one was successful. Lin Muyu was not discouraged. There was not much battle energy left in her body and her stomach was rumbling with hunger. However, if she did not carve a successful product, she would not be able to eat. Just as she completed half of the Absolute Devil Seal, a response came from the array. Instantly, Lin Muyu was overjoyed. The array seemed to have a life of its own as it guided Lin Muyu's next carving. Not long after, a perfect circular engraving appeared on the shield. When the mysterious crystal was embedded in it, a bright light burst out. The first rank 4 engraving was a success. Lin Muyu was so excited that she almost fainted. Rank 4 engraving. The number on the testing crystal kept jumping and finally stopped, 97%. This time, she was really going to faint. A 97% perfect Absolute Devil Seal. If she took it out, it would definitely scare those arrogant engravers like Wei Miao to death. According to the ranking of engravers, with Lin Muyu's ability to carve a 97% perfect absolute devil seal, she was probably a master engraver. It was like a dream. Afushi's heavenly book actually allowed her to transform from a novice engraver to a master engraver in 1 day and 1 night. At this time, a conversation between Feng Jixing and Bai Yin could be heard from outside. Feng Jixing said, "You didn't go out for the whole day?" "Yes, after the commander came back, he locked himself in his office to practice engraving." "I don't know if he starved to death," Bai Yin said. Feng Jixing was a little displeased. "You should at least send the food in. What are you doing as a personal guard? If you starve Ayu, the commander of the empire, to death, I'll immediately catch you like a thief." Bai Yin was shocked. "General Feng, you can't just arrest people indiscriminately. I'm innocent. Stop talking nonsense. Knock on the door." "Yes." Before Bai Yin could knock on the door, Lin Muyu had already opened the door. She smiled tiredly. "Brother Feng, you're here." You, Feng Jixing looked at him in shock. He then darted into the office and looked around. However, he couldn't find what he was looking for. "Brother Feng, what are you looking for?" Lin Muyu was stunned. Feng Jixing said, "Looking for a woman." "Why would there be a woman in my office?" "Humph, if you didn't keep 7 or 8 women in your office, how would you become so decadent? I feel like you've been hollowed out." Feng Jixing was a little distressed. "Did you send the women away? At least leave one for Brother Feng." "I'm not a brother." Lin Muyu wanted to die. "What are you thinking about? I've just been engraving for too long. My stamina and battle energy are almost used up." "You're too hardworking, kid." Feng Jixing looked at the shields in the room and couldn't help but sigh. Geniuses weren't born. Although Lin Muyu was talented, he had put in more sweat and effort than others. "Bai Yin, tell them to prepare the food and send it over immediately." "Yes, General Feng." Lin Muyu returned to her seat and smiled. "Brother Feng, you didn't come here just for supper, right?" "Of course not." Feng Jixing touched his nose and said with a smile, The Heavenly Book Pavilion is about to be rebuilt. You should know about this, right?" "Yes, I know." "Do you know about the people from the 4 big families?" "The 4 big families?" Lin Muyu was stunned. Feng Jixing nodded. "Yes, Prince Zhong's mansion, Ouyang's mansion, Ji's mansion, and Lu's mansion. The masters of these 4 families can engrave the heavenly book above the earthly book. They are known as the 4 big families in Lanyan City. Now the people from these 4 big families have established themselves in Lanyan City. His Highness has rewarded them with a lot of gold, silver, and jewelry." "What does Brother Feng mean?" "The heavenly book." Feng Jixing's expression darkened. The heavenly book is a kind of divine power engraved on weapons, shields, and armors that can trigger the power of heaven and earth. After the opening of the heavenly imperial gate, the heavenly books on the continent that have been silent for many years have awakened one after another. The pattern of the war in the future will also change greatly. As the commander of an army, we must build a good relationship with the 4 big families so that we can get enough heavenly book weapons, shields, and so on from them. I'm afraid that the war in the future will not only depend on wisdom, but also the power of the heavenly book." Lin Muyu shook her head. "I just returned to Lanyan City, so I don't know anything about the heavenly book for the time being." Feng Jixing smiled. "You're too focused on your own cultivation. These 4 big families have become the existences that the nobles of Lanyan City are fighting to curry favor with. Although we don't have to curry favor with them, we must not offend them. Otherwise, if they don't give us the heavenly book in the future, the combat power of the Longdan army camp and the imperial army will be greatly lower than the other armies." As he spoke, Feng Jixing took a deep look at Lin Muyu and said, "Both Duke Yun and Duke Lan are trying their best to rope in talents from all sides. We have to be careful. Also, in half a month, the first Heavenly Book selection examination will be held in the Heavenly Book Pavilion. If you're interested, you can also learn to engrave the Heavenly Book. This thing is far more useful than engraving. Got it. Lin Muyu smiled brightly and said, if there's a chance, I'll understand what the Heavenly Book is all about. Don't worry, Brother Feng. I'll learn the Heavenly Book after I've engraved level 7. Oh right, I have a copy of the Vajra protection technique here. Take it and cultivate it. Remember to burn it after you've memorized it. Don't pass it on to too many outsiders. Oh, there's such a good thing? Feng Jixing smiled faintly. I'm not giving it to you for free. Lin Muyu smiled. I'll give you the Vajra protection technique, and you owe me 5 weapons that contain the spiritual power of the Heavenly Book. How about that? Feng Jixing held his forehead and smiled. Good lad, you're really stingy. Alright, I promise you. If all of Feng Jixing's martial arts were offensive, even his purple electric flame wolf was an offensive martial spirit. In reality, his need for the Vajra protection technique was much stronger than Lin Muyu's. Holding the martial manual in his hand, Feng Jixing's heart was filled with mixed feelings. His big brother seemed to be relying more and more on Lin Muyu's ability. How could he endure this? He could only collect more heavenly books to compensate Lin Muyu. Chapter 490. Time passed day by day. More and more rumors about the tomes of heaven appeared in Lanyan City. The human tomes, earth tomes, and spirit tomes were described as having the ability to penetrate the heavens and the earth. The forces of the 4 major clans had officially entered Lanyan City. In order to attract people's support, Qin Yin issued an edict that the masters of the 4 major clans were allowed to bring weapons into Zetian Palace. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Lin Muyu had been immersed in the cultivation of the Fuxi Heavenly Tomes. Fuxi's Heavenly Tomes engraving was more about mental cultivation. Step by step, it reached the state of perfection. The carving knife was like a pen. From the beginning, she was one with the pen, then to the mind and pen as one. When Lin Muyu engraved the level 6 Divine Imperial Seal, she finally had a breakthrough. Late at night, in the Temple Grand Deacon's office. Lin Muyu's body was surrounded by the faint light of the king's battle flame. Her pen danced on a shield. It was a complex pattern of the Divine Imperial Seal. As she waved the pen, waves surged in Lin Muyu's eye. Countless amounts of seawater shot up into the sky like a curtain of rain. In the midst of the monstrous waves, a huge golden pen stood majestically in her eye. Heart Pen. The second realm recorded in Fuxi's heavenly tomes. Only those who understood the heart of the pen could engrave a level 6 inscription. Fuxi's heavenly tomes had 4 realms: Pen Tip Floating Blade, Heart Pen Out of the Sea, Holy Pen Amaterasu, and Divine Pen Transformation. Today, Lin Muyu had painstakingly cultivated to the second realm. Because of this, she was able to engrave a level 6 inscription. She carefully picked up an Azura stone given by Jin Xiaotang. This blood-red gemstone was worth 5,000 Jinin dollars. It was said that it was picked up by an expert from the edge of purgatory. In order to activate the Divine Imperial Seal, the Azura stone and the Blood Fiend gem must be embedded together. When Lin Muyu inserted the Azura stone and Blood Fiend gem into the 2 cores of the formation, the shield in front of her shone brightly. A blood-red array formation floated on the surface of the shield, glowing brightly. This is the Massacre God Seal? Lin Muyu was very excited. She flipped the shield over and buckled it on her arm. Sure enough, after a thick power seeped into her body, the effect of the divine governing seal was to resist coercion. In other words, if she wore such a shield when fighting with a powerhouse above the sanctuary realm, she would have an absolute advantage in terms of momentum and domain. I took the testing crystal and placed it on the shield. The crystal immediately shone brightly, and streams of light converged on the jumping number. Finally, it stopped at a large 93 foot, 93% perfection. He wondered what Wei Miao, Zhang Zhao, and the others would think if he brought this shield to the Purple Yinhua auction house. At this moment, Bai Yin knocked on the door. "Commander, manager of the Heavenly Compendium, Lord Ji Lin of the Ji residence has sent someone to invite you to the Heavenly Compendium's luncheon tomorrow afternoon. Do you agree?" "Ji Lin?" Lin Muyu muttered. The Ji residence was a family of Heavenly Compendium. Not long after the reopening of the Heavenly Imperial Gate, Ji Lin wrote a high-grade Earth Compendium that shocked the entire Qin Empire. It was also because of this high-grade Earth Compendium that Ji Lin was chosen by Qin Yin to become the #1 person in the Heavenly Compendium. Now that the prestige of the Heavenly Compendium had slightly surpassed that of the Holy Sanctum, Ji Lin still had to give face to Ji Lin. "Got it. Let me know in advance when you are about to set off." "Yes." The next day at noon, Lin Muyu set off in advance. He brought a few shields with him to the Purple Yinhua auction house. When he placed the shields on the table, Jin Xiaotang was already stunned. Her mouth opened wide. Royal Divine Governing Seal? "Oh my God, big brother you, how did you do it?" Lin Muyu made a shushing expression and smiled. "Help me keep it a secret. Just say that it is the work of a mysterious hermit. I don't want to attract too much trouble because of the engraving. There is enough trouble already." "Yes, Xiaotang understands." Jin Xiaotang lifted the heavy shield with difficulty and smiled. "The price of this shield is at least 100,000 Jinin coins. And, do as you see fit." Lin Muyu nodded, then left the room and followed by Yin to the Heavenly Scripture Pavilion. The Heavenly Scripture Pavilion was originally located in Prince Yuning's mansion. However, after Prince Yuning disappeared and Qin Lei died in battle, Qin Yan moved to the Holy Temple and Longdan Army Camp. Thus, he gave up on this mansion and voluntarily offered it to the Empire as the headquarters of the Heavenly Scripture Pavilion. Now, the horizontal board of Prince Yuning's mansion had been removed and replaced with the words, Heavenly Scripture Pavilion, in gold. Outside the mansion, 12 fully armored guards guarded the gate. This level of security was even stricter than the Holy Temple. The two horses slowly came to a stop. Lin Muyu dismounted and cupped her fists at a guard. "Holy Temple's Lin Muyu is here to keep the appointment." The guard was startled, then immediately performed a military salute and said, "So it's Commander Yu. Please come in, the lords of the Heavenly Scripture Pavilion have been waiting for a long time." Lin Muyu nodded and smiled, then led Bai Yin into the gate. Prince Yuning's mansion had been passed down for thousands of years. It was very majestic. An ancient path led straight to the main hall in front. Both sides of the path were lined with osmanthus trees. In the distance, there were already many people standing in the open space in front of the main hall. Most of them were high officials and nobles of the empire. However, what caught Lin Muyu's attention were the rows of huge stone tablets erected in the square. Soon, a man wearing a white brocade robe walked forward. He was about 25 years old, similar to Lin Muyu's age. His face was full of pride, and he held a thin sword in his hand. He smiled and said, "This lord must be the Holy Temple's great deacon, Lady Lin Muyu?" "Yes, I am. May I know who you are?" Lin Muyu felt a little uncomfortable looking at his attire. He really looked like a rich young master. The man cupped his fists and smiled. "I am the third son of the Ouyang clan's patriarch, Ouyang Bao. Nice to meet you, Commander Yu." Lin Muyu nodded. "Young lord is too polite." As she spoke, Lin Muyu still looked at the stone tablet at the side. She saw that there were many golden characters carved on the stone tablet. They formed a string, and there was a mysterious energy enshrouding them. As if seeing through Lin Muyu's confusion, Ouyang Bao smiled and said, "Commander Yu, there is no need to be surprised. These stones are carved with the human book, spirit book, earth book, and heavenly book. They were all contributed by the big families. Many of the heavenly books we wrote were just imitations of these books. I suggest Commander you not to read them too much. The characters on the heavenly books are all ancient divine characters. If you read too much, you won't be able to bear it. Moreover, Commander, you probably can't understand them at all. Oh. Lin Muyu squinted her eyes and identified the characters one by one. She was extremely surprised. Why did these divine characters look so familiar? There were even some characters that Lin Muyu could recognize. For example, the wavy character was the word water, the circled character was the word sun, the crescent character was the word moon, and the worm-like character was the word it. These divine characters were actually the Chinese oracle bone script passed down from ancient times in China. How could the oracle bone script be the divine characters of the Shattered Cauldron realm? Lin Muyu was secretly surprised. At the same time, she was even more certain that it must be Qing Emperor Fuxi. He was one of the founders of the Chinese civilization. Now, it seemed that Fuxi was also the founder of the heavenly book. Therefore, the divine characters he used were none other than the oracle bone script. Suppressing the joy in her heart, Lin Muyu placed her hand on the hilt of her sword and slowly followed Ouyang Bao to the front. Suddenly, an official announced loudly, "The great deacon of the Divine Temple, commander of the Longdan army camp, Lin Muyu has arrived." Everyone turned solemn and looked over. Many of them had only heard of Commander Yu of the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning, but had never seen her in person. This time, they could finally see her in person. And Lin Muyu also saw that there were many people attending this banquet. Feng Jixing, Xiang Yu, Wei Chou, Zhang Wei, and the others were all present. Almost all the martial artists who were above the rank of captaincy, as well as the officials of the Ministry of Personnel and the Ministry of Revenue were also present. Only the Empress, Qin Yin, was not present. Among the crowd, a silver-haired old man wearing a long robe embroidered with golden patterns walked over. He cupped his fists and greeted, "I am Ji Lin, paying my respects to Commander Yu." According to the official position, Ji Lin, the steward of the Heavenly Book Pavilion, was no longer below the commander. Therefore, Lin Muyu did not dare to be rude and immediately cupped her fists and said, "Old Sir Ji Lin, you are overpraising me. Junior Lin Muyu should be paying my respects to Sir." Ji Lin laughed and said, "Commander Yu is truly a famous general who is both brave and wise." Lin Muyu did not know what he meant by this and only smiled apologetically. Ji Lin turned around and cupped his fists at the crowd again. He said, "Dear sirs and generals, today, I have invited everyone to the Heavenly Book Pavilion not just for a simple banquet. I would also like to take this opportunity to demonstrate the power of the Heavenly Book to all the important officials of the Empire. This is to prevent anyone from thinking that the Heavenly Book is merely a deceptive and worthless book." As he spoke, Ji Lin looked at a young man beside him and said, "Shenger, come and demonstrate the power of the Heavenly Book." "Yes, grandfather." The young man was dressed in light purple soft armor. His face was filled with confidence and pride as he walked to the center of the stage with an imposing appearance. He raised the broadsword in his hand and said, "My name is Ji Shang, the son of Ji Residence's second son, Ji Yun. Dear sirs, Ji Shang will have to be impolite today. Look at the long sword in my hand. This is an artifact embryo with the law of frost inscribed on it. However, this book is a defensive frost shield. Therefore, dear sirs, if any of you would like to test the power of the spiritual book, please come and compete with Ji Shang." Everyone in the crowd was stunned. Wei Chou, Bai Yin, and Situ Sun all came to Lin Muyu's side. Under Lin Muyu's gaze, they did not intend to make a move. However, the Tang family seemed to be unable to restrain themselves. Tang Lu, who was dressed in embroidered clothes and had a jade belt hanging from his waist, raised his brows and said, "Young Master Ji Shang, is the spiritual book really that powerful? Ji Shang smiled. Marquis Westridge can come and try. Let's try. Tang Lu was a heavenly realm expert after all. With a leap, he landed on the empty ground. He did not draw his sword and instead raised his hand to summon his Fire Fox martial soul. A flame imprint leaped out from his palm. Chapter 491. Buzz. A raging flame encircled Tang Lu's feet. He leaped up and kicked repeatedly at Ji Shang's face. At the same time, the Fire Fox seal in his palm glowed brighter. He was planning to use the Fire Fox seal after kicking. It was an undefeatable tactic. However, Ji Shang's face was filled with a disdainful smile. He suddenly flipped the long sword in his hand, and the silver runes on the longsword soared into the sky. There was a faint response from the sky. He had already activated the power of heaven and earth. The surrounding power of the law of ice rapidly surged onto the longsword. Ji Shang shouted, "Power of the spiritual book, Frost Shield." A huge ice chi shield hovered in front of the long sword. Bang! 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 It shook off Tang Lu's 3 kicks in the air. Tang Lu fell back in a battered and exhausted manner. However, he wasn't willing to accept this kind of humiliation. His body suddenly leaped in the air, and the Fire Fox seal whizzed out. Good heavens! This playboy has unexpectedly made a breakthrough. Moreover, he has used the 7th layer of the Fire Fox seal, 5 Chi seal. Boom! The flames surged, and the 5 Chi seal crashed onto the frost shield. However, it was unable to shatter it. Instead, Ji Shang raised his long sword and charged forward. He used the frost shield produced by the spiritual book to smash into Tang Lu's face. Bang! Young Master Tang's face was covered in frost, and he retreated a few steps with a swollen nose. His face immediately turned red. He had lost. Tang Lu. Tang Lan leaned on his walking stick and softly reprimanded, "Don't show off after losing." "Yes, grandfather." Tang Lu could only respectfully stand by Tang Lan's side. Ji Shang raised his longsword, and the power of the spiritual book on the blade slowly dissipated. He cupped his fists and smiled. This is only the power of a high-grade spiritual book. A weapon embryo with a high-grade spiritual book written on it can activate the power of the spiritual book 7 times in its lifetime. Everyone, the might of a spiritual book is already like this. One can only imagine how powerful the stronger earthly book, heavenly book, or even divine book would be. Tang Lan cupped his fists and said, "The might of the heavenly book is indeed admirable." Ji Lin smiled. "Duke Lan is too kind." As he said that, Ji Lin took out a dark green jade flute from his sleeve and said, "This jade flute has the low-grade nether tome profound energy that this old one personally engraved on it. It has not been activated yet. Which general wants to feel the power of the nether tome? It will also broaden the horizons of everyone present. It has been too long since the light of the Book of the Earth has shone on this continent." Lin Muyu frowned but didn't say anything. He could also sense the power of the Earth Tome. Although it wasn't enough to threaten his life, there was no need to challenge the Earth Tome in this kind of situation. Ji Shang took the jade flute from Ji Lin and looked at the group of silent generals. He could not help but laugh. Could it be, no one dares to challenge the might of the Book of the Earth? It seems that it is indeed as expected. The heavenly imperial gate has reopened, and the era of ruling the country by force is about to pass. In the future, this continent will be the world of the heavenly tomes. In the crowd, Zhang Wei suddenly pulled out his sword and said, "Go f***ck yourself." I, Zhang Wei, am not convinced. Ji Shang laughed heartily. It's the Imperial Guard's deputy commander, Lord Zhang Wei. Since you are not convinced, why don't you give it a try? Suddenly, the atmosphere became tense. The people who inscribed the heavenly tomes in the Heavenly Book Pavilion all wanted to obtain a high position in the Empire. This was bound to challenge the cultivators who originally held great power. It was inevitable that a battle between a scholar and a martial artist would occur. However, Lin Muyu was very worried about Zhang Wei's safety. If the heavenly tome in Ji Shang's hands was an offensive type, Zhang Wei might die under the might of the Book of the Earth. In the next moment, Lin Muyu slowly walked down the stairs and said, "Why don't you let me try?" "Wait, you." Feng Jixing slowly walked forward with his sword in hand. He looked straight at Ji Shang and said, "Young Master Ji Shang, my subordinate is a boor. Please forgive him for his words. Since Zhang Wei is my subordinate, let me, the commander, stand up for him." As he spoke, Feng Jixing pulled out his sword. The wind-cutter saber glowed brightly. He smiled and said, "Young Master Ji Shang, let me, Feng Jixing, experience the might of the Book of the Earth. How about it?" A trace of displeasure flashed across Ji Shang's eyes. Then, he smiled and said, "Since General Feng wishes to experience the might of the Book of the Earth, then come." Feng Jixing let out a soft grunt, and the white imperial forest cloak behind him slowly fluttered. Streaks of fiery red fighting aura continuously appeared around his body. This was the king's fighting flame. It was unknown when he had stepped into the Holy King realm. As expected, a sage did not reveal his true abilities. Everyone retreated. A Holy King realm expert challenging the might of an inferior grade Book of the Earth was no laughing matter. Ji Shang's cultivation was clearly far inferior to Feng Jixing's. However, there was no fear on his face. It was as if the Book of the Earth in his hand could overcome everything. However, his face was already covered in sweat. It was obvious that activating the might of the Book of the Earth also consumed his vital energy and stamina. He had already activated the high-grade Book of the Earth once. Now, activating the inferior-grade Book of the Earth consecutively was somewhat strenuous. With a light flick of his wrist, the jade flute in Ji Shang's hand emitted a golden light that soared into the sky. It caused an earthen yellow light to descend from the sky and continuously gather on the jade flute. In the blink of an eye, the power of heaven and earth turned into raging flames that surged towards Feng Jixing's body. Power of the Book of the Earth, raging flames. Ji Shang shouted angrily. He had already launched his attack. He knew that his opponent was Feng Jixing, a Holy King realm expert. Thus, this attack seemed to have used up all the heaven and earth spiritual energy in the Book of the Earth. The raging flames whizzed forward, but Feng Jixing had no intention of dodging. He bent his body slightly, and his king's combat flame whizzed into his battle saber. At the same time, the purple electric flame wolf howled continuously as he executed the demonic blade devourer. Boom! The raging flames clashed with the raging winds and lightning. Immediately, the civil officials fled in fear. Only Lin Muyu, Xiangyu, Situ Sun, and the other experts remained unmoved. They stood there like mountains. The whistling winds blew against Lin Muyu's white cloak. She narrowed her eyes, and a faint glow of the dragon blood shield appeared in front of her to offset the impact of the Book of the Earth's power. The raging flames continued to surge from the jade flute and attack his opponent. Meanwhile, Feng Jixing raised his wind cutter, and the king's combat flame around him burned even more intensely. Step by step, he faced the raging flames head-on. Under the impact of the raging flames, his face turned slightly pale, but the determination in his eyes didn't change. He suddenly opened his hand, and his powerful left hand grabbed the tip of the jade flute. Then, he let out a low roar. Bang! The jade flute shattered. The carrier of the Book of the Earth, the jade flute, had already shattered. Immediately, the earthen yellow light in the sky disappeared without a trace. The jade flute in Feng Jixing's hand had already turned into dust. Wisps of jade powder flew from between Feng Jixing's fingers like quicksand. After Ji Shang lost the Book of the Earth, he was directly faced with Feng Jixing's oppressive aura. Immediately, he couldn't move, and his face was covered in sweat. Feng Jixing slowly scattered the jade flute's powder and smiled. Looks like it's still too early for the Book of the Earth to replace the Divine Temple. Only after Feng Jixing's oppressive aura dissipated did Ji Shang take a deep breath and take a few steps back. His face was pale. The situation just now was as if he had walked through the 18 levels of hell. The corners of Xiang Yu's mouth curled up into a faint smile, but he didn't say anything. On the other hand, Lin Muyu's spirit pulse technique could clearly sense that Feng Jixing's king's fighting flame was at least 20% weaker than before. A mere low-grade Book of the Earth had actually exhausted 20% of his power. Based on this principle, 5 low-grade Books of the Earth would probably be enough to exhaust Feng Jixing's power. It seemed that there was a reason why the Book of the Earth was so popular on the mainland. When Feng Jixing's handsome face was covered in sweat and he stood beside Lin Muyu, he said in a low voice, "My God, the Book of the Earth is indeed powerful." "Damn it!" Lin Muyu nodded and smiled. "Who asked you to show off? I was worried that a heartless brat like you would embarrass yourself. You are the Divine Temple's Grand Deacon, a god in the eyes of the Empire's martial artists. Naturally, you cannot lose to the Book of the Earth. I am just a small commander of the Imperial Guards. It is not embarrassing even if I lose," Feng Jixing said with conviction. Lin Muyu knew what he was thinking and grinned. "All right, count it on me this time. I owe you a favor." "Heh, that's more like it." The destruction of the Book of the Earth had somewhat embarrassed the Heavenly Book Pavilion's manager, Ji Lin. Fortunately, Feng Jixing knew how to conduct himself and handle matters. He cupped his fists in a salute from afar and said apologetically, "Swords have no eyes. I, Feng Jixing, have accidentally destroyed the Book of the Earth. Please forgive me, Sir Manager. However, I will not compensate you. A Book of the Earth is priceless. I, Feng Jixing, am an honest and clean official. I do not have that much money to compensate you." The crowd roared with laughter. Ji Lin was also carefree. He cupped his fists and said, "General Feng, what are you saying? Swords have no eyes in a contest. This old man is already very grateful that you did not injure Ji Shang." As he spoke, Ji Lin's eyes revealed a trace of coldness. He said, "However, the Heavenly Imperial Gate has not been opened for long. Many divine characters have been lost on the continent. It will take some time for the power of heaven and earth to gather again. Therefore, for the time being, there is no one in the Heavenly Book Pavilion who can write a book of the Heavenly Book. If someone can write a book of the Heavenly Book, I hope that General Feng can test the sharpness of the Book of the Heavenly Book again." This was undoubtedly a provocation. At the same time, it was also a way to defend the Heavenly Book Pavilion. Feng Jixing did not say anything. He cursed in his heart, "Ji Lin, you old fox. You want to use the Book of the Heavenly Book to torture me? Dream on. If we were on the battlefield, I would have taken your life with a flying knife long ago. Would I give you the chance to draw on the power of heaven and earth? Humph, childish." Not long after, the lunch banquet began. The tense atmosphere had also eased up a lot. Not long after the banquet began, a familiar and melodious voice came from outside. It was Tang Xiaoxi. "Princess, she has arrived." The disciples shouted loudly. Everyone looked over. Many of them had only recently arrived in Lanyan City and had not seen the legendary second most beautiful woman in the world. Under everyone's gaze, Tang Xiaoxi walked in wearing a red fur soft armor, a white animal skin skirt, and golden cloud boots. She held a fiery whip in her hand. There was a faint smile on her beautiful face. In an instant, the dull banquet became radiant. Xiao Shi greets grandfather. Tang Xiaoxi bowed to Tang Lan in a ladylike manner. Tang Lan's face was full of doting. Xiao Shi is here. Good, good. Take a seat. Yes. However, Tang Xiaoxi did not sit beside Tang Lan. Instead, she sat on the floor beside Lin Muyu's table and said with a smile, "I'm late. How was the Heavenly Book conference? Did you see the power of the Heavenly Book?" "Yes. It's really King powerful," Lin Muyu said in a low voice. Tang Xiaoxi giggled. "Mu, I want to learn the Heavenly Book inscription too." "Oh?" Not far away, a nobleman raised his head with a face full of smiles. "If Princess Shi wants to learn the Heavenly Book inscription, Ouyang Bao, am willing to overstep my authority and be your temporary teacher." He was the third young master of the Ouyang family. It was said that Ouyang Bao had already written 2 spiritual books and was considered one of the best among the younger generation. However, Tang Xiaoxi did not buy it. She pouted and said, "Mu, why don't you learn the Heavenly Book inscription with me? Cultivation is so boring anyway, right?" She actually had no intention of paying attention to Ouyang Bao at all. Chapter 492. Ouyang Bao's face was filled with resentment as he sat back down at the table. His gaze towards Lin Muyu was filled with jealousy and hatred. It was obvious that a perfect woman like Princess Shi should have stayed by his side, but now Princess Shi's small hands were placed on Lin Muyu's legs, and she was actually acting coquettishly towards him. This almost made Ouyang Bao's heart burn with jealousy. "Let's learn then." Lin Muyu had seen the power of the heavenly tomes. Even though it was only a spiritual tomes and a low-grade earthly tomes, it would be a lie to say that she wasn't tempted. "Alright, let's learn together." Tang Xiaoxi was extremely excited and said, "I'll go to the dragon-seeking merchant guild to ask for a few pieces of earthly tomes and heavenly tomes and learn together, how about that?" "Alright, let's learn the divine text first." "Oh, I'm so smart and have a photographic memory. I'll definitely learn very quickly," Tang Xiaoxi boasted proudly. Lin Muyu glanced at her and didn't know how to refute. But at this moment, Ouyang Bao sneered and said, "Let's not talk about how difficult it is to remember the strokes of the divine text. Even if you remember it, it's futile if you can't enter the state of mind of the heavenly tomes. Our Ouyang family has studied the heavenly tomes for generations. Even if we couldn't activate the power of heaven and earth for 4,000 years, we never gave up. Learning the heavenly tomes isn't that easy. I think, Commander, you should start learning from the Divine Text Interpretation Encyclopedia." Lin Muyu frowned and ignored his provocation. She continued to eat and drink. On the other hand, Tang Xiaoxi was full of enthusiasm and vowed to buy a few pieces of the heavenly tomes back to share with Qin Yin. As for Lin Muyu, his thoughts were actually very simple. He didn't want to bite off more than he could chew. He was currently at the most crucial stage of studying inscription and didn't have the energy to learn the inscription of the heavenly tomes before he could inscribe the level 7 inscription. But on second thought, inscription of the heavenly tomes was actually inscribing words on the tool embryo to activate the power of heaven and earth. In a sense, it was similar to inscribing. One was inscribing the divine text while the other was inscribing the diagram of a profound formation. After the sun set, the instructors and sparring partners in the divine sanctum stopped their training. Instead, they stayed in their residences to cultivate their mental states. Only the roars of ferocious tigers and swift wolves could be heard coming from the beast taming department. After Lin Muyu imparted the art of beast taming, the number of wild beasts in the beast taming department had increased. However, they were just a bunch of tamed wild beasts that recognized their masters. They would not harm anyone. Dong dong, In the Sacred Temple Grand Deacon's office, Lin Muyu was familiarizing himself with the Level 7 God-Slaying Seals illustration handbook when there was a knock on the door. Bai Yin lowered his voice and said, "Lord, Her Highness Yin and Princess Shi are here." "Oh? Please come in." "Yes." The door opened, bringing with it the cold wind of a winter night. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, both wearing black cloaks embroidered with gold, walked in. Behind them, a few royal guards walked in with a huge stone tablet in their arms. Lin Muyu had seen this kind of stone before. It was the model of the heavenly tomes. It was an existence that could activate the power of heaven and earth. However, because it was carved on stone, the tool embryo was not chosen well, so it could only be used as a model. "Xiao Yin, Xiao Shi, you guys are..." Lin Muyu was speechless. Qin Yin burst into laughter. Her beautiful eyes were full of moving stars. She said with a smile, "Xiao Shi said she wanted to learn the heavenly tomes, so I followed along. I'm borrowing your territory. You don't have any objections, right?" "No, no." After the door was closed, there were only 3 people left in the room. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi each held a steel longsword in their hands. Then, they took out a brush. It was a special kind of brush. It was hollow and could only be used to inscribe the heavenly tomes on the tool embryo after adding some materials. Lin Muyu was surprised when she saw Tang Xiaoxi filling the engraving brush with a pile of silver powder. She couldn't help but ask, "What's that?" "Profound silver powder. It contains spiritual energy. Only the divine runes carved with it can activate the power of heaven and earth," Qin Yin answered on her behalf with a smile. "It's expensive, isn't it?" Lin Muyu asked. 300 gold Yin coins per caddy. That's very expensive. Lin Muyu secretly clicked her tongue. Only the rich could come up with the heavenly tomes. Ordinary people couldn't afford to learn it at all. Lin Muyu focused on the engraving. After a while, she felt a little tired and took a look at Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's heavenly tomes. In the end, the 2 of them each flipped through a copy of the Divine Text Translation Encyclopedia. The book was filled with tiny characters. The heavenly tomes had to be written in the divine text, but in Lin Muyu's eyes, these divine texts were the legendary oracle bone inscriptions. They were only slightly different. To write a heavenly tomes, one had to follow a rule. First, one had to choose an attribute. The heavenly tomes were divided into 8 main rules: wind, fire, thunder, earth, ice, light, life, and space. One had to choose one of them and then use words to describe it. As long as one's state of mind and writing skills were up to par, one could activate the power of heaven and earth. However, this was extremely difficult. She glanced at one of the heavenly tomes written by Qin Yin, Storm. An endless bone-chilling wind tore everything in the world apart. It seemed to be not bad, but it wasn't deep enough. Looking at the 2 heavenly tomes written by Tang Xiaoxi, Lin Muyu instantly laughed. Flame. A raging flame hotter than a barbecue skewer. It burned all the idiots. Lightning. A sudden clap of thunder from the sky. A bolt of lightning killed a large group. Pfft. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh out loud. Tang Xiaoxi raised her head and looked at him. Her face instantly turned red. She glared at him and said, "Idiot, don't peek. This is only a half-finished product." Lin Muyu held back her laughter and said, "Xiao Shi, I bet 10 Jinin coins that your sword must have gone astray and can't activate the power of heaven and earth. I think you should just write according to the model." "Humph, just you wait and see." Tang Xiaoxi's brush moved quickly, leaving shallow marks on the body of the sword. The mystic silver powder slowly seeped into the body of the sword and couldn't be washed away. However, after Tang Xiaoxi finished writing the entire sentence, there was no movement. There was no sign of activating the power of heaven and earth at all. She pursed her lips and turned to look at the divine text written by Qin Yin. Her face instantly turned even redder. Qin Yin wrote even more seriously. Every symbol was very correct, unlike the messy writing by Tang Xiaoxi. Lin Muyu stopped looking at it and continued to study the God-slaying seal's illustration handbook. After an unknown amount of time, Lin Muyu suddenly raised her head. Her heart skipped a beat. An extremely powerful force from the spirit pulse technique was actually less than 10 meters away from her. She didn't even know when the other party had arrived. Who is it? He abruptly stood up, the king battle flame surging out of his body, the 7 luminaries holy gourd and the god-binding chains breaking out of his body and circling around him. At the same time, he stretched out his hand and grabbed the sword hanging on the sword rack. What's wrong? Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's eyes widened. They didn't realize it. This could only mean that the person's cultivation was far above theirs. Bang! With a loud bang, a large hole appeared in the window at the side. A man in a black robe spun around and raised his palm without saying a word. A fiery red martial soul appeared on his arm and it buzzed loudly. His palm was filled with raging flames as it flew towards Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu didn't back down. With a roar, the power of the 5 great mountains gathered on her blade and swept out. Boom! The energy exploded, flipping the tables and chairs in the office and causing documents to fly everywhere. Lin Muyu held her sword and took a few steps back. An invisible force descended from the sky. It was the divine heaven realm. The person was actually a divine heaven realm expert. He stood proudly in the air with his arms crossed in front of his chest. A fiery red fan appeared around his body. His face couldn't be seen clearly under the cloak. He smiled and said in an old voice, "You're the current head deacon of the Divine Palace, Lin Muyu? Who are you?" Lin Muyu held the star sword in her hand and had a cold expression. "Someone who wants to test your abilities." The person laughed. At the side, Tang Xiaoxi had already transformed into the 9-tailed demon fox. She threw away her engraving pen and took out the nation-suppressing whip. Qin Yin also summoned the true dragon god binding chains and held the bright heaven-suppressing sword in her hand. She was ready to attack. "Shao Yin, Shao Shi, don't move. I'll do it myself." Lin Muyu could not help but rejoice in his heart. To have such a strong opponent as his opponent made him incomparably excited. Furthermore, this person came to challenge him openly and did not attack him secretly. It seemed like they were not mortal enemies. "Ha ha ha, good!" The elder shouted in a low voice. The flames in his palms became even more intense. He raised his hands and the fan danced around his arms, emitting a shrill sound. When Bai Yin and the others pushed open the door and entered, they were stunned. However, they didn't make a move under Qin Yin's gaze. On the other hand, Lin Muyu used 100% of her power. Her 2 martial souls quickly disintegrated and fused. She took out the 7 luminary celestial sword, and her aura and power instantly soared. Even the elder made an "oh" sound and laughed. Martial soul fusion? Interesting. By the time his palm landed, Lin Muyu had already swung her sword a second time, first starlight. Boom! Flames surged and exploded. The impact was so strong that everyone couldn't even open their eyes. The head deacon's office was also on the verge of collapse. The walls were starting to crack. If the 2 of them used another move, the entire palace would probably collapse. Sha sha sha, Lin Muyu was forced back by her opponent's powerful Sage Heaven Realm power. The elder also spun in the air and retreated a few meters. This move still didn't decide the victor. "Who are you?" Lin Muyu asked with a cold expression. The elder laughed. His laughter was filled with benevolence. Let's stop fighting. Otherwise, the holy temple won't be able to withstand our power." He slowly lifted his cloak. His face was pale, but his eyes were shining brightly as he looked at Lin Muyu. At the door, Guiyang suddenly staggered. He supported himself with his walking stick and said in a trembling voice, You're head deacon Xianyuan Hong. You're back. The person who came was another head deacon of the holy temple besides Lei Hong? Deacon Guiyang, it's been 15 years. How have you been? Xianyuan Hong smiled. Guiyang was extremely excited. Yes, I'm fine. Lin Muyu was dumbfounded. Xianyuan Hong landed on the ground and knelt on one knee. He bowed to Qin Yin and said in a low voice, I, Xianyuan Hong, have traveled the northern desert for 15 years. I've finally made some progress in my cultivation. Please forgive me for being late to rescue you, Your Highness. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.